Welcome to Profits and Process. I'm your host, Ryan Grant, again. Today's guest is dope for me because this is actually probably the first time now I've gotten a chance to actually like sit and really build with you. Yeah, he's been a brother of ours for years, and somebody that he's kind of like an enigma. Does a whole lot of stuff, but you don't really know. Steps in a lot of realms and builds a lot of careers. So he's who's created a lot of the artists that you love and listen to. And I think that's why it's so valuable to me to hear this man's perspective on process, because I've watched him just dive into a lot of different spaces, succeed, do well, pivot on to the next. And I think that he has a mindset around, number one, a confidence just to continue to do it and feel confident to step into new spaces. But it's been dope to watch him grow and watch him evolve in these spaces. So introduce Sickamore.
Appreciate that, Ron.
Yeah, yes sir, man. I said it's ill because I think about it, this is the first time that we probably actually get a chance to like build like this, and hearing your story and watching it and knowing it from afar is, very different, because it was, even for me, it was kind of like, yo, what does Sick do? I know at one point in time, you've had many titles, but even me, I'm like, I don't really know what that means detail wise though. And then just seeing, it's like, yo, whatever he's doing it right, because he's just able to continue to maneuver and help people. And then hearing other people's perspective and how they talk about you, that's what's really interesting. I don't know if you listen to what people say about you, but it's been some really powerful and impactful things that I've heard in regards to your value in their space, in the roles that you play. You've inspired, you've been a catalyst for a lot of people and stability. So that's what's up.
I feel like, as far as like what I do, I think my role at this point is to help people get better, like a coach or like a personal trainer, and I kind of like, my pocket is like music, so for like the last 20 years, I've been helping like artists and different people like kind of develop and kind of find their sound and find, their purpose and their position, how to keep it going.
Yeah.
And I think like at this point in my life, like now it's like my craft. My thing that I always tell people, like I'm in the business of creative process.
Word.
I help, artists, with their creative process. Like, most of the time, if you're an artist, it starts as a kid. You show your parents a drawing, and like, oh, that's great, and it goes on the fridge.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's great. Oh, this is beautiful, and you frame it, and it's all good. And over the course of time, that gets a little bit more scary to do that. Because maybe somebody makes fun of your art in school, or you get an F in art, like, oh, I suck at art, like, what I mean? And slowly but surely, the art starts getting picked off, and people kind of hide that inner creativity to the point where people are like, yo, I'm not creative. Like, you hear people say that. Everyone's creative,
absolutely.
But then that's like a lot of trauma that they had, like, for whatever reason. So the people who, even you as an athlete, it's a creativity. Yeah. Like if you're a running back, all running backs are not. You could run like Barry Sanders. You could run like Jerome Bettis.
Exactly.
Marshawn Lynch. They're all artists. So like for me, I grew up loving music. Grew up in a Trinidadian household. My first music that I got put onto was soca, calypso, and gospel. And then my sister put me on to like R&B. My dad used to listen to stuff like Kitchener and different old school bands. And then it became like, my sister came up in the New Jack Swing.
Oh yeah.
So like a lot of Teddy Riley, and then she loved like Onyx.
You the youngest?
Yeah, just two of us.
Oh, dope. Okay.
I kind of just found out there's somebody else the other day.
All right.
Like really, like yesterday, my mom gave me a text like, "Yo, your dad just."
Oh, literally the other day.
Like yesterday, like your dad found out he has a son somewhere.
You just dropped an exclusive.
Exclusive. So I don't know his name. I don't know if he's older or younger than me. So I might be the youngest still. I might be in the middle. But but that was kind of like my upbringing. My sister mixed with my family, so I grew up loving hip hop, R&B, and all music, and all like fun music. And then as I course of my life, like has gotten me to the point of like where I've built it out. So like from listening to the music, I still thought I was gonna be like a sports agent when I was a
Okay.
kid. I used to collect basketball cards. And I loved baseball first. That was the first sport I got good at.
Word.
My dad used to take me to go play baseball, and I got really good at baseball really young. And then baseball became a second priority once I started falling in love with basketball. So around that time I was like 10, 11, I kind of went from like Bernie Williams and the Yankees and Derek Jeter to like Allen Iverson.
Sounds about
and
right.
Kobe, and that 96 draft really did it. You know what I'm saying? Ray Allen.
I
Steve
think that
Nash.
draft did it for a lot of the culture. Like, that was a certified culture draft.
Yeah, that's
You know
that
what
point.
I mean?
I never came back from that draft. That
Word.
was it. I was a basketball guy then.
Word.
And I got into football like a little after that. But I thought I was going to be a sports agent like Jerry Maguire. But I always had this love of music, and I always kept like these CDs on me, like I would get from like Blockbuster and Nobody Beats the Wiz.
Yeah.
I would just be known in high school as the guy Randall who had all the CDs. And a lot of life, I feel like it's about timing and just where you ended up. So when I started coming of age, I started coming of age at the beginning of the technology boom and the internet. So when I was in high school, it was beginning of like Napster, and Kazaa, and peer sharing, before Spotify and stuff.
That changed. Oh, yeah.
So if you were older than me, like that stuff was like foreign, but like BitTorrent, it was something I grew up on.
Word.
So like I would make mixtapes in school, and I would sell these mixtapes to like teachers, and I would do these custom playlists. So the teachers might want like,
okay. Now I appreciate it. Keep going, because I was gonna ask. I know the mixtape situation for you, but not knowing actually how you came about in doing that. Okay.
So my dad he's a retired journalist. He's the business of technology, right? So he wrote about tech.
Yeah.
And he was pretty much the only black tech writer through like the 80s and 90s. Like he would do like huge profiles on like Microsoft or like do 50,000 word articles on Bill Gates, It was very like specific, writing. I remember one time, never always stuck with me when he was freelancing. He a writer somebody called him for a job, and I think he charged like $2.50 a word, and or $3 a word or something. They said that's ridiculous, that price.
Yeah.
And they called him back like maybe like 2 weeks later. He said I should charge you $5 now because no one else could do what I did, and I always kind of stuck with me like he fought for his value. But then he would always get these early MP3 players, anything in early like CD-ROMs and computers. So I would always be like his test dummy. He'd like, look, I got this. And it would be like the early version of not of an iPod, but like before that when it was just an MP3 player.
Word.
That would fit like 200 MBs or something like that. So I could fit about 150 songs and different things. And I would just, anything that would fit me, it would work. So I became tech savvy really young. I had my own computer.
Yo, that's actually a really valuable thing, because you were ahead of the curve in a space. At this point in time, did you even know you just loved the music and you would just love being in that particular space, but did you know that you were going to take it and kind of do something with it? Or
not at all. I still thought I was going to be in sports.
Word.
And because in school I wasn't like a specialist, I was like a B student, so I didn't know what I was good at.
Yeah.
And one time I got to high school, I went to alternative school downtown Brooklyn, and alternative schools, like, you ever seen the movie Precious?
Yeah.
You remember the class they was in? It was like 12 kids.
Yeah.
That was like kind of like my class, and you stay every class with those kids.
Yeah. That's it. Your whole days with them
for 4 years.
Word.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't know how I ended
Bro's
up
in a program like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They teach you differently though.
Absolutely.
And
it actually worked for it. It was good for him. It ended up being really good for him.
I don't know how I ended up there. I think a guidance counselor in junior high school recommended it, and I applied there, and I applied to Westinghouse, right?
Okay.
No, I got into Westinghouse, and I was like, I don't want to go to Westinghouse because, I want to fight every day. I know that's like a legendary school in Brooklyn. Like Jay-Z went there, Busta Rhymes. But I was like, I'm not going to Westinghouse. So I thought about, like, I'm going to have to fight every single day.
Scrap,
all day. So, but I went to this other school because the name of it was Metropolitan Corporate Academy. I was like, oh, that's great. Did not realize I was at an alternative school. You call teachers by their first names. You're in a school with 15 kids. Not 15 kids, a class with 15 kids in there for every 4 years. So you get to really learn the people that you're with. Absolutely. And I'm still friends with a lot of people from high school. And now, like, when I'm talking in high school, I'm doing these mixtapes because I had got kicked out my mother's house, right, for like fighting or whatever, and I had to live with my dad in the Bronx. Yeah. So I'm going real New York on this podcast, but I had to take the train from Fordham Road to like Nevins in downtown Brooklyn every day, which is about an hour and a half train ride. So
Yeah.
I got to really listen to my music, and I really got to read, you know. And so by the time I got there, I became an expert in everything. Wu-Tang, Big Pun. I love lyricism, cannabis, like, you know what I'm saying?
At what point did you think, like, you know what, like you trusted your ear to think I'm gonna actually make these mixtapes, or were they just for like personal?
I used to do custom tapes for people, and then the whole school would come for me for tapes, and they'll give me like a list of songs, and they would ask me to burn it.
Like folks knew that you were making music because you would always probably listen to the music, and then they would ask for stuff.
And then they was first they used to borrow my CDs because I had a big binder of CDs. You know what I'm saying? And then they would ask me to make a playlist because I would burn them CDs, and I started selling the CDs. And then I started getting so popular at selling CDs, I became like the music man around school.
Word.
And then my friend Terrence, who lived in my building in Ebbets Field, I lived on the 5th floor. He lived on the 3rd floor. He came up to me one day and said, "Yo, you know you could make a mixtape and just sell them." And I'm like, "Okay, well, like DJ Clue?" And they're like, "Yeah, like Clue." And at that time, I thought I was gonna work at Nike. So I had a Crip homie who was like a friend. I met him in summer school, and he had a plug at Nike. So he worked at Nike, and I'm like, "Yo, I'm gonna work at Nike Town. This is junior year going to senior year." So I'm like, I'm about to get 30% off. It's over, you know. And then
About to kill for the summer.
so I kill him all year because I'm gonna go after school to Nike. Like, you know, when you grow up in New York, like Nike's the you just going to Harvard, you know.
Hell yeah.
So then so finally I get the job. I get the letter like August 28th. I think my start date was gonna be like early September, and then September 11th happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And right before September 11th happened, September 10th happened. And September 10th, mom and pop stores used to get CDs early, right? And there's all this counts where I'm going. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I went to B Street Records downtown, and I bought 2 albums. I bought Ghetto Fabulous, which is Fabulous's debut album, and I bought The Blueprint, Jay-Z.
Yeah.
And then when September 11th happened, I was a senior in high school. So, you know, I was downtown Brooklyn, I had to walk home. My mother worked on 17th Street. She had to walk home over the bridge. She was like covered with soot, you know?
Shit.
And, you know, the city was kind of shut down for a few days.
Yeah.
And I remember maybe like a couple of weeks later, I got a letter from Nike saying they're going to freeze hiring. And then I got a letter a couple of days like, "Hey, you don't have the job anymore." Like, this is like early October now. And I was so mad at that letter, you know, because I really wanted that job. And I was so mad. I felt like I earned the job, but they took it away from me. And at that point, I was like, I'm never working for nobody again. You know what I mean? And I remember Terrence telling me about these mixtapes that I could go sell. So I hit him like, "Yo, can you show me where to go?" Yeah. And he took me to Canal Street. And it's like, "Oh, here." So I went back to my crib, and I remember the Jay-Z was in my mind now, like 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4. Like, so my 16-year-old mind is like entrepreneurship now because music's so powerful. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm switching this whole shit up. You know what I'm saying? And I made 20 CDs. You know, I burned like the CDs like called Anthrax on Wax, because Anthrax was a thing at the time when they put like Anthrax on the mail it to politicians.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was like Anthrax on Wax, and I got exclusives from like Napster, and I put the CD out, and I made 10 that had like a USPS logo. I put on Canal Street.
You certified, bro. That's like that's legit. This ain't no just out here just making no regular, just putting songs together. You were making actual mixtapes.
Yep, and I printed them like at a local like print shop.
Word.
And I burnt them. I got a little CD covers from like, you know, Nobody Beats the Wiz. I gave 10 CDs there. They gave me $20, and then I put like another 15, maybe it was 25 CDs. I put 15 on Consignment in Bargain Bazaar, downtown Brooklyn. And this guy named Drake, he took the CDs on Consignment. When I was in Canal Street, like, "Yo, I'm popping in Harlem." Like, you know what I mean? I got a big tape.
All right, hold on. Who told you to do all these little things? Did you just know?
I knew where I was a fan of mixtapes.
All right, so you bet. So
I
you
knew
had
where
some
to
sort
go.
of understanding. Yeah.
And then
they some sort of understanding.
And the DJ shouted them out. They were like,
Word.
"Dre on the low, downtown Brooklyn, Sammy's Fashion, the Bronx." You know what I'm saying? So I would just go to wherever K Slay or Clue or these guys would go.
Well, yeah.
And then I went downtown and I said, "Yo, I'm popping in Harlem." Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he's like, "I get out my face. I'm gonna take 15 on Consignment." I'm like, "Bet. What's Consignment?" he's like, "Oh, if they sell, we'll call you."
Yeah.
I'm like, "All right." And then the next day he called me like they sold out. Like, bring 100. And I'm like, 100 what? You know? So I went home to my dad's computer, and I didn't go to school for the next 2 days because I had to burn all these CDs.
Yeah.
And it took about 20 minutes per CD. And he had to wrap them, he had to package them. So I brought them like 3 days later, and he's like, "Where were you? I needed these 3 days ago." And then He said whatever, and he gave me $250. And
I'm sure that was like
it was up. I felt like Mitch and paid in full. I'm like, I found my calling, you know, because I was making my own money.
Well, yeah.
And then, you know, I just started going from there and just making connections. So like, I did like another mixtape. I did the same thing with the same route. And then on my way to school, because I remember I'm still in high school at the time. I'm still a senior.
Yeah.
So like this shit is just starting to move fast. So I'm like, yo, I need a store, right? So I'm like, I had this barbershop in my neighborhood, Chocolate Factory, and it was down the street from Clara Barton and Prospect Heights.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yo, if I get all the foot traffic
I was gonna say,
from here, from the kids, I'm gonna sell out everything. It didn't really work like that, but like that's what in my mind. So I went in there to the barbershop. I'm like, yo, how much is to get a booth in here? And they said, yo, get the fuck out of here. And then it came back again. I was like, yo, how much to get a booth in here? And he was like, well, it's gonna be $600 a month. So I remember I went to church and this guy named Brother Williams, he believed in what I was doing. And I had a friend in school who believed in what I was doing. So I was like, yo, we're going to start a company together. It's going to be Sickamore and Sean's Entertainment, LLC. Like, you know what I'm saying? We're going to open up a board. But I'm 16, bro. I'm like, I don't know what type of shit I'm on. And so the guy gave me Brother Williams gave me like $2,000. And I had money from the mixtapes coming in. So I went, started an LLC, got like a license to go buy like CDs. I think like Ashanti was big at the time. So I had like real CDs.
Yeah.
But then I'm calling like people like K-Slay and stuff. They say, yo, we'll sell you some CDs or whatever. My boy AG, he was a mixtape distributor. I'm calling numbers in the back of the phone.
Yeah.
And I go back to the guy and I come in with like...
this is like an entrepreneurship 101 course, son.
No, this
is certified shit, yo. I'm learning. I didn't know this.
This is Profits and Prices.
For real. Word, yo. Continue. I ain't got to do much of this.
So by that time, I came back with like $1,800 to the guy. I said, yo, I want to start in February. So I didn't know at the time I'm paying this guy's whole rent because he has half the barbershop and the other half is like the woman's side. They're paying $1,200 total. $600. So he stopped coming to work. And then like I end up having my little booth, but I never see him no more. I'm like, damn, why Jude don't cut no hair no more? But like, I ain't got it. He ain't got it. He ain't give a fuck about cutting hair now. He was out. He was gone.
Yeah, word.
And then that's how I built my relationships. And I started selling my mixtapes. And then I started doing good with the mixtapes. The store really wasn't making any money, but it gave me like a reason to call people. Yeah. Like I call all these DJs and they'll be cool with me and like, oh, we're gonna send somebody down. And I started building my relationships. I'll meet people like Who Kid and Clue and I'll buy mixtapes from them and then I'll learn about spots and then I'm selling my CD. I'm getting more popular. I'm selling instrumental CDs. I'm like 20 CDs turned into 40 turned to 80 until like, I started getting the name and I'm selling them all across New York. So I'm selling them downtown Brooklyn, Harlem, Fordham Road in the Bronx, 125th Street, 145th Street, Jamaica Avenue, Queens, the Coliseum, everywhere I could get on the train, because this is before Uber.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not taking taxis all day because it eats into your profits.
Right.
So like I would have like a little dolly with all my joints until I could afford my boy. I could pay him every week because his dad had a expedition. Then I have a little crew, like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
so
then you had a team.
And things started moving up.
A couple runners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With me, Jonathan, Tariq, we moving around. Like the mixtapes are going good. And then I got like a distributor in Harlem. My boy Action Pack, he put me on. He was like, he had an apartment in Taft with like these CD towers. And he made me a deal. He said, I'll bring you all the CDs you want for in town. You can sell them, keep all the profit. And out of town, that's how I'm gonna make the money. Because he did everything with COD.
Word.
So I bet I ain't doing all that work. And then so like every time I drop a mixtape, if I sell 600, profit would be like 1,200. And 1,200 CDs, 2,400. So I was selling about like 5,000 mixtapes a week until at the peak of it. And then not a week, a month. And then at that point, I got rid of the store. I was like, I don't need this shit. It wasn't a lease. So I was just paying this guy some money. And I was just on from there. And then I looked up like maybe like a year later, I had a real name in the city.
That's crazy. All right. So to give perspective of that, because that seemed like business is booming. That's all. What were some of the things I like to give people an opportunity to hear what might have been some of the challenges, like some of the terrain that you felt like, oh, you know what, could have been seen as a blockage, a barrier, or, that might have slowed you down?
It was a lot of blockages, but it was also a lot. I looked at everything like an opportunity because when you like a kid, you just looking for a yes. When you're an entrepreneur, I should say too, you're always looking for the first yes. You're used to hearing no.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to buy the CDs? No. You know what I mean? So I'll go in there like, yo, like I'm selling everywhere. You know, like I wanted to get into Sammy's Fashions really bad on Fordham Road.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't on Jerome, and he wouldn't. I remember one time I was like damn near in tears. I'm like, why won't you sell it here? Like, you know, when I finally got in there, I felt like I made it to like a upper plateau.
Landmarks, you know what I mean?
Like I remember like my dad didn't understand what I was doing. So he's like, yo, you could be selling drugs. Like, I don't know what you got going on.
Yeah. What you out here doing all the time?
And they didn't really understand what it was until they came to the store. My mom and my dad, they're not together.
Yeah.
And they came to like the opening and I had like balloons and shit. And then when they saw that, up to this day, they never asked me about nothing again. And I asked my dad one time later, like, yo, why'd you like ask me more questions than what I was doing? He said, look, man, you had a plan. Word. He said, we came to this country with no plan. So when you had a plan, we just said, fuck it. Like,
yeah, yo, hearing you speak around the points where you knew to go do this, do that next, it's like you clearly did have a plan at a young age that I don't think most people have. I knew I wanted to sit with you because for you to be able to process that at 16, like I know my 16-year-old self, I was thinking about things that other people weren't. And it wasn't necessarily around having a plan. I just knew that certain things weren't going to get me where I wanted to go. So I knew that I didn't want to be around certain individuals because I was like, nah, yo, you just distraction. And if I know I wanted to surround myself around like individuals and people and places that I felt spoke to who, you know what I mean? Like what I wanted. But I didn't really have a plan. It was just like, nah, I'm just going to work mad hard and just see how it falls out.
The good thing about like, you know, when you came up, because, you know, you got a chance to be in something that was really structured. So at least there was like a format. Like if you go to like...
It was very linear with my thing.
Yeah, because I'm like in high school, I got to make JV. I got to make varsity.
Yeah.
I got to go whatever. And then I got to make it to college. I got to do 3 years, 4 years. I can make it to the league. Boom, boom. If I go to corporate America, right, I need an internship. And become an assistant, a manager, director, senior director, vice president, senior vice president.
There's a formula in regards to
Army.
The path, yeah.
There's a lot of formulas in life. To me, it was just like, all right, I was living and dying with my next mixtape, you know, and then different opportunities would present itself. So as I kept going, I'm selling mixtapes. I got a little name now. This guy, this good Jewish guy, Gary, who owned the store in B Street Records, he's like, yo, you know, you want a job as an A&R? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like 18. Like how much does it pay? He's like, I think $600 a week or something.
Like, did you know at that point in time kind of what role-wise, what it would...
No, that was my second question. The first question, like, well, how much should I get paid? He's like, $600 a week. We'll build you an office in the record store. I'm like, great, because I was taking Clark Kent's job. Because he had the job before.
Clark, you got to be on the podcast too. Don't get it.
And then the second question I had was like, what's an A&R? And he's like, well, you just got to find us talent, whatever. Because in his mind, I'm like 17, 18 now. He's like, this motherfucker's going nuts.
You know? Yeah.
But in my mind, I'm like, everybody's trying to play me because I'm young. Like, you know what I'm saying? I got a whole nother mentality. And then Clark was one of my first mentors. He's the one, he used to see me and he used to always like talk to me and give me like game. And even back then, I didn't really understand the magnitude of who he was. But I knew his name. I didn't realize all the stuff he did with Big and stuff at the time. But I knew Clark Kent was like a real...
Clark was putting a lot of people on.
Mm-hmm. And he would always kind of like kick it with me, like, you know, so I thought it was really dope. You know what I'm saying? I felt like it was like a rites of passage, or like K-Slay would talk to me, or Who Kid would talk to... All these people would like talk to me, you know, and I'll just be like, take it as like a step. But I had my problems too, like I ended up starting beefing with the guys who like was working for me. Like I had an opportunity to go do a mixtape with Snoop Dogg in Diamond Bar, California.
Yeah.
That was the first time I went to Cali, and he wanted to do a mixtape. So he had a guy from Brooklyn in there that I knew from Bushwick who knew me through somebody else or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they flew me out there and they was like, yo, how do you... And I'm talking about, he has a whole house that's just for like recording. So I go up there and he's like playing video games with like Nate Dogg, recipes. And I'm waiting for them to finish playing Madden. And he comes up to me and he had like a blunt in his mouth. He's like, yo, cuz, like, how do you make a mixtape? And I was like, well, it's just like making an album, but you don't got to do no paperwork. So you just rhyme over other people's beats but make real songs. Yeah. So I ended up staying out there for 7 to 8 days while they made all these records. And I watched. That was like my first like real A&R process. Because you would have like all the people like in the East Siders and...
all the crew, all the LA.
It was like the Welcome to the Church series, Volume 1. And I'm like this random mixtape DJ from New York in this whole process, you know? It's fun. And I got a chance to see the way they made music. And I thought I never forgot how collaborative that was.
Was that the first time you were actually a part of the process in regards to the music making?
I mean, when I was the A&R, I was booking stuff for like their local artists and stuff like that. But on that high level, yeah. I mean, the only other artist that I met at that point that was big was Fabulous, right? Because his in Ebbets Field, where my family lived, the local superstar was a guy named Cheo Green, and him and the guy named Webb managed Fabulous, and Cheo had he had the hardtop drop top Lexus, you know what I'm saying? He had a chain, jewelry, Rich Young gear, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I remember Cheo pulled up on me. I mean, every time when Cheo pull up on me, it'll feel like I was used paying full, but it'll feel like that. I was like, man, this guy's like God, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I was like, he was like in the music business, and I was like, wow, that's what I want to do, like, you know what I'm saying? And he would just kick on me for a little bit, and he never really wanted nothing from me, but he would talk to me, which I was happy with, you know what I'm saying? I was like, I'll just, you know, I got to talk to him, and then one day I got cool with him, and I got cool with Paul Kane, I got cool with the whole Street Life crew, and then they knew I had instrumentals, and one day I got a call like, yo, Fabulous wants you to come to the studio and bring some beats. So I came to the studio and I brought him like instrumentals. I'm thinking he wants like freestyle beats. Yeah. And then he's like, you got any real beats? And I'm like, ding. And that was really like the beginning, like, oh, I could do this A&R thing. Yeah. And then so fast forward to Snoop, he's having producers there, he's having them making music, but at the same time, the guys who are in New York running my business, they getting on some bullshit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like one of my guys got into some trouble in Bushwick where like they like disrespected his girl when they were walking down the street. So he went back with his friends, like shot the block up, and now he's scared. So don't ask me why I had a gun, but I had a gun. I let him borrow my gun. Now he has a gun running. You know, he's trying to tell me, like, trying to press me about the money. I'm like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm like
just a whole host.
There's a lot of human resources issues I'm going through at that time. So
because I was just about to say, what did that teach you about the human aspect of dealing with, you know what I mean? Like now the human dynamics, because it's different making mixtapes, you know what I mean? You sell them and everything like that. But now being an AR, you got to deal with people.
Yeah, because now they're looking at it like, yo, this nigga's in California with Snoop. Like he getting Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't got no crazy money. Like Snoop's thinking like, I'm just going to sell the mixtapes. I'm asking Snoop, ain't y'all going to pay me? Like to do this? Like I didn't really understand. I'm learning everything on the fly.
On the fly, yeah.
Everything's on the fly. So by the time I get back, we end up like, we ain't squash it, but you know, we just kind of like agreed to disagree kind of thing, you know, say to put it nicely. And then I just had to like, I really kept the bit. I kept everybody more like it wasn't like a borderline. And I had everybody like an employee. Like I had somebody who drove me around who was almost like a security guy too, but he had like an SUV kind of thing. And I was just kind of moving around the city crazy until like, and I would just hustle, you know, and I think for one day I got a connected like Unique Sports, right? And they made patches on the clothes. Remember 2003, like the Flip Side video for Freeway when everybody was like wearing like patches with the NBA
team,
logos?
The icon.
So I had for some reason I had to connect there, and they gave me $7,500 to give away product, and they gave me boxes of clothes. So my boy had a connection to Just Blaze, right? So I ended up giving him mad boxes of clothes on tour. I gave him like 2 big boxes, and I would just hit him up. So he used to let me come to Baseline Studios. And then that was the first time I was like in a real big studio. Cause remember Snoop's studio was like his house studio. But now this is like fast forward. This is the end of 2003. This is like Black Album, Jay-Z. You know what I mean? This is like he just dropped that, and I didn't know Just Blaze owned the studio. So I'm like, yo, why nobody's ever in here? You know what I'm saying? He's like, well, you know. And I'm like, oh, it's my opportunity, like, to be a bigger A&R. I said, yo, you should let me run your label. Like, you should make me an A&R. You know what I'm saying? And like, and I'm.
And how many years you been in the game at this point in time?
I'm still not in the game, really. I'm in mixtapes. So like, I dropped my first mixtape November 2001.
Oh, you know what you said? What year was that you with Just? You were in the studio?
2003.
Oh yeah, you said. Damn, yeah, okay, you're right. My bad. I'm getting the timeline. All right.
So I'm in the game for 2 years. I just graduated high school like in June 2002.
Right.
So like, I'm fresh out of school. So I'm gassing it. And he's like, all right, well, I'll make you a deal. You could be A&R for my company, but you're not going to get paid until we have overhead. We got overhead when you find me an artist.
Yeah.
But you'll come to A&R when you find me an artist. So I'm like, bet. So I'm thinking about who can I bring? I'm like, Saigon, you know what I mean? And at that time, it was like, he had like this mixtape that I heard, and I was like, yo, I called him up, like, yo, can you come to like Baseline? And he's moving from like Jersey to Brooklyn. He's like, yo, I'll be there right there. He came in an hour because I already played just some of the music, and he liked it, and then they met, and they became like together. So that was the first time I was like building something for real.
Yeah.
So for like 6-7 months, I started slowing down in the mixtapes. So now I'm on my A&R grind. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to the studio every day. One time I walked in, and I walked in the room, and he was talking to Usher. So I walked out. I'm like, damn, I was Usher. Like, you know what I mean? This is Confessions Usher. And they were working on Throwback, the one with Jadakiss.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yo, how much you gonna charge him? And I was like, he's like, we don't charge at that level. It's like a swap. I'm like, what the fuck is that? He's like, I give him a beat. He's gonna give me a song. I like, everything just going crazy. And then I kind of got my first like real reality of the music business because we worked on that project, and then he ended up getting a deal with Atlantic Records.
Word.
But then I got like then I heard about like through the grapevine they had like a official dinner with like Atlantic.
Yeah.
And like I wasn't there, and that was like the first red flag. Like, damn, he invite me to the dinner. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then I started asking questions. I'm like, well, shit, I got the record deal. It's time to get paid.
Yeah.
But he like technically he got like a executive producer deal, so he didn't get overhead. So he got like 6 beats for like $40,000 a beat.
Yeah.
So like $240,000, but then, you know, technically that's to deliver songs.
Yeah.
And then
So
Max Saigon,
fine
got
lines,
an
you know what I mean? In between the lines, it's not exactly what
Yeah, so at 19 years old, I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna kill somebody. Like, I'm just like, nah, for real. Like, cause I just invested. I'm investing my
whole. You're getting taken advantage of. Regardless.
So I didn't know really what to do. I just said, fuck all y'all, and I just kind of retreated. And then, but that's when first time I realized that when you do stuff, sometimes everybody's watching. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if like you scrubbing the floor, you running a podcast. You could like, the metaphor I'm using is like usually sports. If you're like, what's the guy Rui on the Lakers? Rui Hachimura.
Yeah. Word. Yeah. No, Hachimura.
Yeah. So like he was
playing for a contract, boy.
He was doing good on the Wizards, but like he had to fight for playing time with Kuzma. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a weird spot. People just chucking up shots. But he was decent when he got time. But now he with the Lakers, his opportunity. You just never know who's watching.
Absolutely.
They traded him for a first round, and now he's gonna get real money.
We had a real good reference point for that in the league because people used to automatically assume that your film is only watched by your team. And we used to say, nah, that's not, especially in the preseason, that your film is watched by all 32 teams every week. Mm-hmm. So we used to literally say, put your signature on. That was a phrase we said, put your signature on your tape.
Yeah.
So that no matter what they're looking at, you feel proud about what they're going to see because it's getting shopped by everybody. Mm-hmm. Because you might be the fourth best on your team position-wise, but on another team, you might be the second best or better. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And guess what? That because of the amount of turnover in the league, they're always looking for opportunity to bring somebody in and stuff like that. So that reference point is the same thing around like, yo, you never know who's watching. So always make sure that whatever you put out tape-wise, be comfortable with your signature being on it. You know what I mean?
And you went from the Packers to the Giants or the Giants to the Packers?
Giants to the Packers. Same thing.
I remember like, because I'm a Giants fan, and I started getting into the Giants around like Dave Brown and Rodney Hampton. And I remember like when you were on, you were like a change of pace back almost at first, and you were competing with somebody, right?
So it was me, Brandon Jacobs.
That's what it was.
Me, Brandon, Derek Ward, and then they brought in, what's my man? Ahmad Bradshaw. Mm-hmm. And I tell people, it was Tiki Barber, Brandon Jacobs, me, Derek Ward, and then the next year when Tiki retired, they brought in Ahmad. We had the best back. All four of us went over 1,200 at some point in time in our career. Yeah. And I remember, and then they had signed Ruben Drones, and we just had a backfield filled a bunch of dudes that were really good. And we used to all say like, yo, we don't know how this is going to play out, but we're just going to work. And I remember when I got done with the last preseason game, they were like, RG, you good. Like, you ain't going nowhere. And then you learn really quickly that I was, even though, you know, commodity-wise, I'm bottom of the totem pole in the Giants. Yeah. The Packers, they needed a bunch of backs. Right. They needed dudes. And they were like, yo, and I remember I got a phone call, and I guess this is, you know, for people to learn. I got a phone call saying I made the team. Then they called me back a little bit later saying, yo, it's bittersweet. You made the team, and you're everything you're a Giant. You're everything we want as a Giant. You represent, blah, 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 blah. You work back from your injury. But in the same breath, like, it's bittersweet because you just been traded. And I was like, what? Like, it showed me really quickly the industry, like how that industry can work. Because you just praised me as like being everything you wanted as a giant. And now you're telling me that like you just shot me, and I'm like, oh, okay, I ain't take it personal. It was just like, oh, this is how the business works aspect. It's like I'm a commodity, and the value they gave is more than what the Giants have for me. So you got to take that. And they were like, yeah, we're gonna bring you in right away. And then sure enough, the coach, like you said, you never know who's watching. I met with the Packers during the combine, and they were like, yeah, we really like you. We really like you. We got this grade on you, blah 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 blah. And I remember, as soon as the first thing when the coach called me, like I don't know, 30 minutes later after I get off with the Giants, Packers called me, and the coach was like, I told you we get you. I told you we get you. I've been watching you the whole time. In my mind, I wanted to be like, well, why you ain't draft me then? Like, but I was like, you know what, it is what it is. And I think all that just speaks to us, like, you really never know, you know, what you said around, I don't care what it is, like the intention you put behind something, you know, the personal focus and, you know, your personal standard. And that's a very, you know, it's personal. Like, you know, whether you're doing your things, you know, to the, where you could feel proud about it, or whether you're doing everything you can. And, I think it just carries over in everything. And I want, like, this is super easy for me. I don't even got to do much in this podcast because you giving all the jewels. Like, was that like a moment of pivot for you? Like, in recognizing like, yo, you know what? Because it didn't seem like it created a sense of doubt. It just kind of, it allowed you to either broaden your perspective or change your lens, maybe.
I learned a lot there. That was one of my biggest life lessons. Because that summer, like, let's say he got the deal at the end of 2004. I've been working the whole 2004 in this, right?
Yeah.
I went crazy, like, on a marketing campaign. I was just told everybody, like, yo, I'm an A&R for Fort Knox Records. Wow. I'm talking about, I don't even know if he had this shit incorporated. I'm talking about, but it was a story. I'm a 19-year-old mixtape DJ turned A&R. You know?
Yeah, you got a beautiful story. Right up to this point, your story is ill. So it's like, I'm sure you're riding with that.
So I'm like, I'm in the Source, I'm in Double XL, I'm in all these different places, but at the same time, like, you know, I'm not really making that much money anymore because I'm selling mixtapes, but I'm not doing a lot, but I'm like building my brand up. So I'm like, all right, I'm getting on there, like, you know. So that probably was a reason they was like cut me out a little bit, but they never told me that to my face. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then so when I didn't get no part of the deal, I took that real personally. I kind of retreated, but because I put my signature on it, one of Saigon's friends, True Life, saw what I did for him. And he started calling me like, yo, like, you know, like, I heard what you know, you're not working with him, but like, you know, I can do some help if you want to help me.
Word.
And I'm like, hell yeah. So I sat and I wrote him, like, he told me what he was trying to do. He played me some records and I wrote him a 12-page business plan on what we was going to do. Because he had a song called The New New York. And I said, look, we're going to do everything around this song. We're going to bring New York back. That's going to be our mantra. We're going to go around this record, da-da-da-da-da. And we just started thugging for like 5, 6, 7 months. You know, it's just me and like 50 Puerto Ricans from LES. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm just like coaching, you know what I'm saying? Because like we just trying to make it through. And he was more experienced in the business than me because he had like record deals at DreamWorks and stuff before, but he was listening, you know? And I just got Saigon a deal, and then we just kept thugging and getting the records, and based on his relationships and the vision I had and the mixtape that we did, and he ended up getting an bidding award after like 6 months, you know? And it's like, I'm talking to Donnie Einer from Sony, and it's like Snoop Dogg wants to sign him at DreamWorks.
Are things moving fast for you at this point?
Fast.
Like I said, because that seems like a small amount of time. Like,
but not at the time, because I was, remember, like, I heard about the Saigon thing in November. He got the deal, and we didn't start really working until February. Okay, so it was a cold winter. You know what I'm saying? Especially like, you can't buy no Christmas gifts. You're supposed to be this big mixtape DJ. Like, you know what I'm saying? I was fucked up. You know what I mean? So when that opportunity kind of like,
you didn't want to go back to. At no point in time did you go back into the mixtape stuff in that world. You had already felt like, you know what, I've done this, so I'm just gonna take it in a.
The mixtapes was cool, but it was slowing down because I was putting so much energy into this thing.
Word.
So when I got this opportunity, I was like, nah, I'm gonna see this through.
I'm gonna take this.
And then so when the time he got the deal, he ended up getting a bidding war. He signed with Jay-Z's label, Rock La Familia. Yeah. And then I'm talking about every rapper started calling my phone because artists talk.
Exactly.
Everybody watches film. So like I remember like Stack Bundles is calling me and Papoose is calling me and all these people calling me, trying to get them in the corner. And then that's how I got a chance to meet my mentor, hip hop. And he was like my Green Bay Packers, you know, because Saigon ended up signing a production company deal to Hip Hop since 1978 / Atlantic. Yeah. And he was the head of black music at the time, him and a guy, G. Robeson. And he like he just started taking an interest in me because I was doing mixtapes. I had a mixtape rank in the top 30 people, and he started calling me to his apartment, like in a financial district, and I used to go over there, and then I was like, oh yeah, this guy is cool. Like, that's my mentor now. And I just, at that point, I would just offer my services. I would just be like, I would call him every day. I would just harass him. Like, if you need anything, like, da-da-da. What you doing? Like, I'll work with you. Like, you know what I'm saying? I was just like, this is my guy. He's my mentor up to this day.
Soak it all up.
Yeah, almost 20 years later, that's still...
Oh, he's still that shit.
Still my mentor.
Like
he's my friend now, too.
Yeah, absolutely. But I like that, though.
But when we go places, I say, hey, this is my mentor hip-hop. You know what I'm saying? I still... Any major decision I make in life, I still call him. And mentorship is really important.
That's beautiful. Absolutely.
So then he was just like... kind of guide me, like, you should do this, or you should read that, you should read this book, you should do that. And then he introduced me to... It's funny, I got to meet with him tomorrow again, because it comes full circle, because the artist I manage now, Don Tolliver, is signed to Atlantic Records. But he, at the time, this 2005, he said, yo, I'm going to get you a job at Atlantic. And he introduced me to the head of Atlantic Records, and they had a negotiation again. And he was like, negotiation was like, well, what do you want? I was like, and I remember I got smart after the B Street record. Like, they're not going to get up on me this time. They was like, what do you want? I was like, I want a good title. They said, how does director A&R sound? I'm like, bet. And they're like, well, what else do you want? I said, I want an office. And they're like, cool, you got one. I'm like, bet. That was it. I didn't negotiate no money.
Baby steps, though. It's like, all right, you know what? Mm-hmm. Nah, it's funny. I know what that is, man. When guys first come in the league, they ask for certain things. And then you hear the vets be like, oh, that's how you know they're young. Because the things they ask for are like the most basic things in the world. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what you're worried about.
But then I was 21. I was at that point, I was the youngest, like, A&R in the business. I was younger than the interns there.
Word.
And my first artist was Saigon. So that's like how it came, like, full circle. Because now I'm back in the fold, but like now I'm in a position of power. I got a salary. I got a thing. I got other artists, and it felt good. You know what I'm saying? I felt like I did the right things, the right moves. And I was like, I'm never doing a mixtape again. I'm an A&R now, which I don't think was a smart idea. You know, I think now in the age of like multidisciplinary artists and different hats. That was before then, like, you know.
It was like once you go in the lane, you stay in that lane, and you don't necessarily. It might have been seen as regressing in some capacity, but like it's funny. I agree with you. I don't see it as regressing now, and I wonder if I might have at that age as well.
It was pre-Virgil. It was pre-Kanye. It was pre-Draymond Green.
Yeah.
Like, back then, you know, you did one thing, you did it well.
Exactly.
You know, people didn't wear a lot of different hats. You know what I'm saying? So I was really happy.
Yeah, versatility it wasn't necessarily supported in the same capacity.
And then that's kind of like what I did to answer your question. I was just showing you like the process how I got there.
Word.
And then from there, I've been a career A&R since, and that's like I got that first job like 17 years ago, and it's just been a wild ride ever since.
How do you, in being an A&R, how do you use that, like everything that you learned about, you know, dealing with people, your drive. The one thing in hearing what you're saying, you clearly, what it seems like is you understood soaking everything out from everybody. Like literally just, you listened, you paid attention to a lot of different individuals, and you had people that were in your corner. Even if it didn't necessarily pan out, you know what I mean? You had people looking out for you, giving opportunities for you, and you took advantage of them. What would you say to people on how to take advantage of an opportunity? And what's the best way that resonated for you in making sure that you made the most out of it?
I think like back then I knew what I wanted, you know what I'm saying? And I think like people kind of saw that and would help you go there. I think a lot of times people just don't even really know what they want. Like you'll talk to them like, what do you want to do? They're like, yeah, I think I want to do this, but I want to do that. It's hard for people to help you if you just don't know exactly what you want to go. I think the people I've seen in my life become the most successful are people who have a clear vision of where they're trying to go. And people are like, oh, I got a friend who could do that. I got somebody who could do this, you know, from the guy in church who, invested into the company, you know what I'm saying, to my mentor who got me the gig. Like I was always surrounded by people who I was like, I'm trying to get to X.
Yeah. And then you were able to articulate to them clearly kind of, yo, this is where I'm trying to go.
And they were able like, okay, I'm going to get me there. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was like the best thing I did. What I didn't realize though at that point was what I was going to do when I got there. Because remember, the whole time I'm like, my slogan in the street was like, your favorite A&R's favorite A&R. I was like, like Ryan Garcia trying to campaign to fight Tank until I'm actually in the ring. Like, oh shit, I'm here. Like, you know,
it's real, yeah.
You know, it's a real thing. So when I got there, I wish it could just say that was like the end of it, and I was just like everything was, you know, peaches and cream from there on. But it wasn't, you know, because it's cool, you know, for the press release being like a 21-year-old A&R, but in real life, you know, in corporate America, there's a lot of things you have to realize that experience helps with. Like, you know, first is the job, the technical part of the job that you have to learn. It's company politics. It's like
I'm sure you learned that.
Yeah.
Full circle that. Yeah.
The culture of the company.
Culture, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like culture's like, you know, just maybe some people like bring dogs to work. You know what I'm saying? Politics is like, yo, you can't scream at him because that's the boss's daughter or son or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like all kind of things. So I was bumping my head a lot in that situation. Like, it was hard for me to get anybody signed.
Yeah, those are some of like the obstacles you were working through, like the terrain that you had, challenges that you had and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, but but one of the things that happened to me originally was I found an artist, my friend Kyle Judge. He brought me this artist. I met him through my lawyer. He worked at the law firm that I was like getting cool with. Yeah. So he would help me like do like paralegal stuff, and we built a friendship from there. And he found an artist named Winter Gordon. Oh. Right, you know what I'm saying? And he played me her demo, and it was great. You know, and she had a really experienced manager or production company with Don Pooh. Yeah. You know,
Winter Diana, you up next too.
Our mutual friend Keith White.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, was her manager, and that was the first deal I did. Now me and Diana Gordon now, you know, she doesn't go by Winter anymore. We were the same age when she signed her record deal.
Oh, word.
And it was cool. Like it was like a bidding war between us and like Mary J. Blige's record label. And we ended up signing over there, and it was really like a big deal, you know. And I was like, wow, I signed somebody, and me and her was just like, all right, we're in it now, you know. And but through that process, like it was hard for me, like I didn't have the R&B relationships and and then a bigger A&R came and like took over, like, you know what I mean. And another guy came to take over, and I was just frustrated with that whole process.
Is there any point? It's like, yo, I feel like in any you learn those things, and a lot of them they are. It's like that's just the nature of what have you start to see. You know, is there any point? What's your relationship with regret look like? Do you even see regret as a thing, or was there anything that you?
The only thing I regretted with that process was stop DJing. I should have never stopped the mixtapes. You know what I'm saying? I should have just did everything at the same time. You should.
So you doing the mixtapes now?
I was thinking about yesterday. I was in the studio. Like, maybe I should start production. Like, you know what I'm saying? Word. Because I wouldn't have stopped because I would just do it all at the same time.
Yeah.
That was my big issue. And then I got really frustrated, and you know, I went to the chairman and I said, like, look, man, it's not for me. I want to resign. You know, I didn't know people didn't do that.
And what was it? Was it around that you thought was not for you? Was it the fact that you maybe like how you didn't feel comfortable, like I don't want to say with big bodied, like did you just feel like it was the Wild West, like there were no like honor in spaces or something like that, or what was it?
No, I was young, you know, so I wasn't really refined, you know, so I had a quick temper, you know. I'm still fresh off the street in Brooklyn. There's no college, you know what I'm saying? So it was mostly me probably, like, you know what I'm saying? I had a quick attitude, and at that point in my life, I used to give up on things fast. You know what I'm saying? Like I was able to, I would walk away from stuff before. I was like, I'm gonna walk away from you before you walk away from me, kind of vibe. You know what I'm saying? They didn't even fire me. I left.
Yeah, you just left.
Yeah, you know.
It's funny because you're for a typical 21, 22, 23-year-old, you're actually successful in that space. It's like, but did you feel successful?
I felt successful at the time, but to me, success growing up is like Irv Gotti.
Word.
Diddy,
okay.
You know, Jay-Z, Dame Dash, you know what I'm saying? These are like the archetypes that
absolutely
I thought success was.
Like, let's talk to that. Like, now, in everything that you've done, what does success look like to you now?
My mentor told me something early in my career that stuck with me. He said, before you want to live somebody's life, look in their life in total. Don't just look at their career and business. Look at their family life, their personal relationships, their health. You know, And now kind of success to me kind of looks like people who do whatever they do on their terms. You know, like I saw like two people, right? I saw like we had a session with like Pharrell and with Don Toliver in Miami. Yeah. And we were hyped like Pharrell's coming. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is a big deal.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and Pharrell was late, like a couple hours. But we didn't give a fuck. We wait there all day. I don't care what time the motherfucker gets there. Yeah, it's P. Like, you know.
It doesn't excuse being late, but what it does is it references like the value of you want to be.
Shit, we would have waited there all day. Like shit, you'd have to call us so he's not coming.
Absolutely.
And we weren't checking on him either. Whenever you got here,
yep. When we get here, yep.
We were playing it cool till we got there. And he's like, my bad, I'm late. You know, I was doing like a 30-mile bike ride with my family. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and then we.
That's it, right
and
there.
And I was like, oh, this is dope. Like, you know what I'm saying? I remember, and then he's like, y'all should really come to the studio like 7, 8 a.m. or your head will be really clear. And Don was like, shit, I ain't getting up at 7 a.m. He might do that now, like, because he's a little older as an artist. But at that time, he was just like, I just liked the way he was moving because nothing was moving him. He was moving at his own.
Yeah.
He was moving at his own time. I remember one time we went to I took that trip to Tulum, you know what I'm saying? And I actually got a really great advice from your mom.
Word.
You know what I mean? And I was telling her, like.
What she said? She always running her mouth.
She was like, yo, you know, I was like, yo, you know, when I go here, I gotta like, you know, dress like this, you know, but when I got meetings over here, I gotta move like that. And she said, you know what you gotta do? You just gotta be yourself everywhere you go, you know, and they make everybody adapt to you. And I was like, that really stuck with me too.
Word. You
know what I mean? So now I kind of like, and even like, and then I always had like older people, mentors that tell me, like one time I was like wearing like button up shirts when I was working for like L.A. Reid. And he said, bro, you don't have to wear that shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? He said, like, you're you. Like, you know what I mean? He said, like, if you need to go on a mountain and walk around for 2 weeks and come back with the shit, that's what you got to do. Word. You know, and I really respect people who build their own ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Work on their craft.
It reinforces your ability to do it as well. It's like, that's the support. That's the healthy support, in my opinion, where it's like, don't tell me how to just keep doing it in the same price. It's like, no, when we're in these positions, especially when we ascend to these positions where it's like we've somewhat broken, it's like, no, allow yourself to be yourself truly, but then also tell the other folks like, nah, you can do it too. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
even with you, one time, I always see you random places, like serendipitously. Like one time, when the first day I got.
Oh yeah, we always run into each other.
First time I got to like Astroworld, I know we were in Hawaii,
yeah,
in Honolulu, and it was like my first day, and I'm like by the beach, and I'm like, man, I'm so nervous. And then I'm like, yo, because we got 7 days to finish this album, you know. And I was like, we've been working on this album for 2.5 years. And I was like on the beach with my ex at the time, and I was just like, is that Ryan and his family? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I think I bumped into you again, like in somewhere like
Palm Springs. Yeah, we. It's really I actually like that because it's always before we were doing something. So it was almost like a marker for me. Every time you run into, it's like, oh, I'm doing something good. If I see you sick, oh man.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
And I remember asking you one time, like, yo, man, like, I like the way you move, like, you know what I'm saying? Cause like, you know, you move with like, what's like your secret? And it's like you gotta have a tribe. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody know that.
You know
I'm all about my peoples, man.
He was like, you gotta have a tribe because you can't do it by yourself. And if you have a tribe, that kind of how it works. And then I kind of like take that, and then I think like that's kind of like the people I respect now, like the people who have like a tribe, like you know what I'm saying, like they work on their craft and they go back and bring it back to their tribe and they build what they got to build from there, because they feel rooted. Because you see sometimes you see like these really successful businessmen or celebrities lose their mind or commit suicide or have these huge health problems or whatever, these things happen because they have no real foundation. So as I get older, to answer your question, is like just like having that tribe and having like. For somebody who's like, for me, who just always on the go, I just want to be able to bring it back home somewhere. That's kind of like my goal now.
That's beautiful for me to hear. I think that like, you know, we get caught up a lot of times like in the details of things, you know, and people work in specific spaces and that to me a lot of times can create a disconnect because if people look at the details, our worlds aren't the same. Mm-hmm. But if you scratch away all the details and everything like that, and you just look at the foundation of what you talked about, it's like, yo, you had an idea, you loved something, you followed what you loved, and then it took you through another opportunity, and somebody believed in what you loved. Like, yo, that's my whole life.
Right.
Like, literally, I'm a byproduct of just a bunch of people fucking with me and being like, yeah, we rock with you. And I'm like, all right, yo, I want to do something. Just down to this podcast. Like, this is an idea that I had. I had no way I could execute this without the people that are sitting behind it. Absolutely. And I think that that's my whole thing. Because when I look at the things that I've been able to do, I don't believe there's one path. But I definitely believe that a path is support.
Right.
And then paying it forward, you know. I'm big on service, and service being, yo, help your peoples out. Help people. Like, not because, no, it feels good to help people.
It does.
And then it reinforces, like, them helping you and then their perspective of, yo, let me help somebody. Because when you give people an opportunity to, and I don't want to say change their world, but when you give people an opportunity to see a possibility, yo, what that does, it changes their entire life and how they see the world, how they see things. And, you know, if somebody would have potentially turned you down or been like, nah, get out of here, you know what I mean? It's like, I think there's a balance in that. You need a little bit of that to keep you feisty, to keep you, you know what I mean, keep you hungry. But in the same breath, you need at least one person that's like, nah, I'm with you. I see what my man's doing. I'm going to rock with you. And we're going to keep this pushing. And on each level, because each level, there's new challenges, there's new growth, there's new terrain, you know. And if you've been running a 10-minute mile and you're like, you know what, man, this 10-minute mile, my heart rate ain't changing right now. You know what I mean? I need to push a little bit. And you start running that 8-minute mile. Guess what? It's a new environment. You're moving faster. You're not going to necessarily know, but there's somebody who's running a 6-minute mile. It's like, nah, that's okay. That's natural how you feel. Don't worry. Just keep pushing. And at some point in time, you're going to get to there. You need that. And it's invaluable to me. Like, you can't, it's just one of those things that it changes your perspective. And then you start to look at every aspect that you get, which is your process, every part of what you're doing, as like valuable. Like, even if I'm in it, it's like, yo, this is hard. Like, listen, there's a lot of this shit I'm learning in the podcast world that's like, what the fuck? And I don't want to necessarily do it, but I understand it is. It's the process. This is going to change. It's going to evolve. And if I really want this, if I really, like, I know I got something now. If I want to stick to my vision, then as long as I need one, I'm a one person. I've had so much foundation of people like supporting me that all I need is one person to be like, yeah, stay on track. I'm with it. I'm gonna stay. I know I got that.
So a little bit of
just say just one thing to just be like, yo, stay on track. And from people that I value, you know, because it is. I do think sometimes, you know, I'm big on counsel as well. Now, yes, I don't like yes man. I like counsel, and counsel is perspective, because, you know, we all have blind spots. We all have spaces where, you know, we don't know what we don't know. And especially when people that I value that have done certain things, excelled, challenged, broke barriers in certain space, I value that. And so I'm going to ask them, yo, what are your thoughts on this? Whether I take it or not, that's up to me because it's mine. But in the same breath, I always want to make sure that I'm looking at it from a holistic as much as possible. And I will say that's the team aspect of me. That's me, you know what I mean, being a team player and shit like that. So, because sometimes, I always wanted to rock. But guess what? The higher level you get, you recognize, you know what? It might not necessarily be the best decision for me to have to rock when you're playing with A-Rod all the time, you know? So you got, and that's it. I think it's good for ego as well in regards to what's your vision? What's the goal? Right. So for me, you know, the goal has been to win. And I ain't never looked at it as at the expense of. Because when I win, we all win. And vice versa. You know what I mean? You focus your peoples and that's what you do. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, I realized really quickly, none of this shit is fun if you're by yourself.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in general, it's like, nah, yo, you want to put your peoples on and give them an opportunity to see who they are and their true self. And that's how we move. So I appreciate hearing you speak about that, man. How would you say at this point in time, like in your path, because you've been in the game for 20 years, certified, how, if anything, has your like personal constitution changed in regards to, you know, what you stand for, what you stand by, how you move as a man?
Well, I think me kind of starting to have that slip up, you know, because at first it started with like, you know, not having six. That's the first time like I'm going through this upward trajectory from like 2001 to 2008, and now it's like going down a little bit.
Okay.
So now like I tried to launch a company, Famous Firm, you know, and it's going good, and we're developing artists. And
it's a management company, right?
It was like a artist development company, I called it, you know, and I had like a bunch of reps that was working with, you know, recipes. My friend Hovain, he was working with me there. A lot of guys, my boy Josh Pease, you know, he's now at Amazon. He was working with me. We had like a real dope ass squad, and cause I had different reps across the country. And when I resigned from Atlantic, I had friends again, like, you know, back in that's putting your signature on it. Before I even walked out the building, Joey Manda and Todd Maskowitz, they ran Asylum Records. They're like, what are you gonna do? Like, I'm gonna go start this company. He's like, well, you want to use our offices, you can. So I was like, boom. So I left the company, but I just went 2 floors down. I didn't have an investment or anything, but at least I had somewhere to go.
Space, yeah.
Which was invaluable to take.
That's big. Yeah, absolutely.
Because they were like, shit, he might bump into something. You know what I'm saying? That was like their mentality behind it. And I just kind of kept going there. And then after a while, that didn't start going good. Then I got an opportunity like in LA. So I dissolved the company pretty much. And then I hated LA. Like, I was like, man, like, I tried to treat LA like it was New York.
Word. All of us do when we first come out.
I'm like, I'm going to wake up at 5 o'clock. I'm about to mash it. I'm going to take 8 meetings today, but it just don't work like that.
Word.
And then, so I moved back to New York, and it was just like, I was just at a downward point because I didn't have the mixtapes anymore. I was out the like the A&R game for a couple of years. And I remember I was in this like real bad toxic relationship.
Okay.
And I was broke. And I remember I was living with my girl in like Lyndhurst, New Jersey. And she was like a mafia kid, you know what I'm saying? And she didn't have no job either, but she had like her parents had money. Yeah. So one time we was in Barnes and Nobles and I wanted some books, and she was like, man, like, you don't need no books. You got books at home. And I was like, man, like I'm a failure. Like, I wasn't far from Giant Stadium. It was like one town over from Rutherford. Yeah. So I was on Route 3.
Yep, Route 3.
And then this was like, now it's 2009. So I'm like, man, how did my life go so down so fast? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, now I'm like 25. I feel like I just had it all.
Yeah, you just came from,
But I'm not like the 19-year-old upstart no more. Now I'm like the former A&R and things. So like the next day I woke up and I took like the New Jersey Transit, and I just drove I took the transit to the city, and I went to like a park in Chinatown. I had like $85 to my name. So I was like, you know what I'm gonna buy? Stationery. You know, so I bought like a notebook. I bought like a pack of pens, and I just sat there in the park for I don't know how long, maybe like a few hours. And I said, I'm just gonna write my life. I wrote everybody that was in my corner, like on my tribe, right there on that side. Then I wrote my game plan out, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna create like this institution of the artist development and music. I'm gonna become one of the best A&Rs. And I was writing out my 5-year plan. And after a couple of hours, I wrote it all out, and I folded up that piece of paper, put it in my pocket, and I kept it in my pocket for 5 years. And everything's changed from that moment. And I had to really humble myself. You know what I'm saying? So I started reading books like on linguistics and communication, and just really understand me as a people's person, because I'm like burning bridges.
You transformed yourself.
Yeah, I had to really, you know, I had to eat shit a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I was like, you know, the first thing I did was I broke up with that girl. Like, you know what I'm saying? And
change your environment.
Changed my environment. I started, my boy Hovain, I told him like I got this plan to do these shows in Brooklyn. And he's like, bet. Like, you know what I mean? I'm with you. So I went and got into some investment. You know, I found some money to go do it. Word. And I started putting on these shows in Brooklyn. I still had relationships. Yeah, so I had a relationship with Harris Publications, and they let me use the Double XL name. I started doing these shows called The Famous Factory. And we did these 4 shows in a row in Williamsburg. And this is 2010 now. So Williamsburg is like, you know, still very hipster, very rock, you know, and but it's still grungy. So it wasn't doing hip hop shows. So then we had like a lot of people coming by because we had like a budget. So we had like Nipsey Hussle, Dom Kennedy, Currency, Joel Ortiz, Sean Price. A lot of people come and perform. And I started building my relationships and recreating myself like as a promoter. And then from there, I started meeting new younger managers who were like, I'm still friends with this day. Like Dom Kennedy's manager, Archie Davis, I'm still cool with him up to this day. Yeah. I remember talking to him, and we got him out there for like, I think it was like $800 and a couple flights. Like, you know what I mean? It was before like all the booking agents went crazy. And then I went back to LA, a place I didn't want to go because that's where the opportunity was. And then my friend Joey and Todd, they were running Warner Brothers. I didn't ask for a job. I was like, yo, I just need like an opportunity. So they signed like an artist that I had to like a development deal. Yeah. And I would just go up to the office every day like I worked there, to the point where, like, you know, New Yorkers, we could hustle.
Exactly.
So I didn't have no badge, nothing, but everybody at that company
saw an angle,
thought I worked there, and I would just show up there every day. You know what I'm saying? And I would just go up, and I was there on some consulting gigs, and I would just meet the office. I'd be in meetings. I think only them two knew I didn't work there.
Yeah.
And then when I was up there, just the environment changed, and the office was in Burbank, and this guy named Jack, he was an intern at the time. And, you know, he thought I was an A&R, so I was like, all right. And then he brought me a demo. He's like, you got to listen to this demo. There's this kid named Travis Scott that I found in Houston.
Some regular kid named Travis Scott.
So I'm like, all right, bet. You played the demo. I'm like, oh, yeah, this shit is hard. You should have him come in. So he came in, like, the next day, and Travis came with, like, all kind of crazy high energy. You know what I'm saying? Just like how he is now, just with a fade. His boy Tony Loney and Anthony Kilhoffer, his manager. So I walked to the guys. I'm like, yo, we got to sign him. You know, and be like, but I think when Joey was leaving the Def Jam at the time.
Yeah.
Todd helped in the end, but it was too late because he already signed. Like, when he left at that office, he signed a development deal with T.I. So I tried to sign him to two different labels. I tried to sign him to Def Jam too. It didn't work out. But we kept that relationship, and that's going to come back to the whole signature thing.
Yeah.
Right? So I didn't get the chance to sign him, but then when he signed a big deal, it was like, oh, like you can find talent.
Yeah.
So when Joey left,
it validated you, like, oh, I know I know how to see. I have an eye for.
So now I'm like, you know, I'm working these offices. Like, I got The Weeknd featured on my artist at the time, and then I got a gig. I got an offer to work at Def Jam, right? And I think it wasn't a crazy offer. I was probably making like, you know, before I was making $50,000, I was making like $85,000.
Yeah.
But I was like, yo, as soon as I get this opportunity, I don't care. I feel like I heard this Derrick Rose story one time. He said that at one point he didn't have no gig, and he was just like, I forgot what random city he was in, like Minneapolis, and in the gym, it was just him and his brother helping him with shots until he finally got a phone call. You know what I'm saying? That's how I felt. I was like, whoever calls me is going to be the luckiest person in the world, and whatever artist comes with me is going to be like Rihanna.
That's a beautiful perspective.
I'm going crazy, and I got that call, and I got the senior director deal at Def Jam. So this is 4 years on the street. You know what I mean? I'm just thugging. And I get there, and they assigned me 3 artists. They assigned me Lil Reese from Chicago, Lil Durk from Chicago, and YG from Compton. And I didn't know at the time. They were just giving me all the places they didn't want to go.
I will say, how was that culturally, did you think? Because those are all 2 different cultures from where you know what I mean? Like Chicago and...
It's both very gang culture.
Yeah.
I grew up early, like when the Bloods first started coming in, like 97, 98, but it wasn't like as aggressive as it is now. You know, it's like, oh my God, the Bloods are cutting everybody's
Chicago's
face.
is its own space. You know what I mean? Chicago's its own culture. Did you feel comfortable immediately? Like, all right, I'm gonna make this work. I'm gonna figure this out. Or like, what was the thought process in regards to navigating those artists?
My mentality was like, I'm gonna make this work. I was most excited. No matter what.
Word.
I was most excited to work with Lil Reese. I didn't really know who Lil Durk was at the time.
Yeah.
And I knew YG from like Tooted and Booted, right?
Yeah.
So their managers, Lil Durk and Lil Reese's managers, called me like, yo, the guys want to come see you. They're excited to get working. And it's like 2 days after Christmas. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to come pull up. So I go to Chicago.
Yeah.
So like Pressure Point Studios. And I'm just like in a studio with like 30 like young niggas with dreads and hammers. You know what I'm saying? And, but I realized that really fast, like, they not on it like that. They come to work. It's just the environment.
Yeah.
So they're playing me all the records that they have, and to find like we got one more song. And then Dirk had this song called "This Ain't What You Want," and that song was so fire. Then we're like, oh, we got a show after. So we went to the show, and this is the really early beginnings of drill music. Like, I didn't really understand drill music. I knew the sound, like Chief Keef. I knew who they were, but I didn't get what was going on. Then I went to the show, and I realized that they're dissing like their enemies and their ops on a song, but these are the same people in the crowd. So like Chief Keef, Durk, and Lil Reese would be like Fredo Santana. They'll be like rapping and like dissing the people, but they in the crowd and be like gang banging back. They throwing back and forth, but they're going back and forth. But they love it. But they also like enemies. Yeah. And I remember the manager grabbed me like, "Sick, don't worry. If we're going down, we're going down together." I'm like, what? The fuck?
Nah, this ain't what I signed up for.
Hell no. But you know, we made it out of there, and I was like, yo, let's record somewhere else. so we went to record in Miami, and we finished like his first tape. And then I started getting in the rhythm of YG. And I really started understanding their culture too. I'm like, everybody's just scared of y'all, but y'all cool. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So they just need a little structure, because when you go record in like in LA, it goes like this. The session probably starts at 12, Might be the engineer and the artist there. Then the first homie starts pulling up like around 3. Then 2 more homies around 5. Then the dice game starts happening around 6. Then push-up contest around 7. Gang calls around 8. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And the distractions will pile up during the day. Like whoop-de-whoop shop, whoop-de-whoop, and so-and-so home, and they want to talk to you about this and da-da-da-da-da. I was like, yo, we got to go to Atlanta. And at the time, Lil Durk had went to jail for whatever he went to jail for at the time. So I was like, I had time. So we went to Atlanta, and we just came with a system. I was like, yo, we're going to work in the studio from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. What? Monday through Thursdays. Friday, you're going to live life, find something to write about. And we started, me, YG, DJ Mustard, and Young Jeezy started working on his first album, My Crazy Life. And by the end of the summer, they really trusted me in the process. So I was just the A&R, you know? Yeah. And then we started cutting records, and they had like big songs like My Nigga was on there, Who Do You Love was on there. And by the end of it, you know, they told me at the end, of like, yo, we're gonna name you one of the executive producers of the album. And I was like, wow, it's crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, we were in Austin when the album finally like leaked like 3 days before it came out. And it was like beginning of like meme culture, 2014. Yeah. And it got such great responses, like with the memes, everybody was going crazy, the flame emojis, the blood emoji, everybody's going nuts. And it ended up becoming number 2 on the charts of this Frozen soundtrack, but number 1 hip hop. And when I looked at the response, I started crying. Like, I was so happy because it was about like 5 years from when I had wrote that piece of paper. Yeah. And I was like, man, I did it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Then I was like, I need to make a longer plan.
Yeah, I was going to say, all right, now what? You know what
so now I want to make like a 20-year plan, because this plan, it wasn't too easy, but it was like, I just see like if you trust the process, there's profits in it. You know what I'm saying? 100%. And then, so from there, that album came out. Then Dirk started having some success, and I started working with Jeremiah, started having success, and then because I put my signature on what was going on, I started getting recruited from Travis, because he was having some troubles at the label that he signed for. Because at that point, he's like signed there for like 2 years.
Yeah.
So I
no real traction, no real.
He had some traction, but they just didn't know how to like what to do with him. You know, because Travis is a rock star.
I was about to say, because Travis is his own ecosystem, and
he has these big ideas, but you need people, like you said, you need people who believe in your ideas. Word. And I always saw him over the years. So he'd come to like our parties, I see him in the studio. Word. And I would be like, yo, what you got going on, man? Like, what you doing? You know? And so I bumped into him at the Revolt Music Conference in Miami, and I was speaking on a panel with like Larry Jackson from Apple at the time, Craig Kalman, my old boss, Daniel Glassman, who owns an independent record label, somebody else I don't forget, DJ Khaled, and L.A. Reid was the moderator. Word. And it was me, and I was like,
that's a hell of a panel.
I was like, y'all sure I'm up here? They're like, nah, like you supposed to be like the young perspective. And when I walked up there and I spoke, the crowd was clapping every time I would speak, because I would always speak about like the music.
You're closer to the culture than actually the exec. Yeah, see, that's an interesting thing. Yeah, that's why your perspective is valuable.
Mm-hmm. And it went from being a panel to a job interview. So when I got off the stage, everybody was like, man, LA gonna take you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I was just vibing up there. Word. And then when I walked off the stage and walking back to my hotel, I bumped into Travis. And I'm like, yo, like, you gotta come fuck with me, man. Have you seen me perform? Like, my performances are going crazy. And we just ended up hanging out for the whole weekend. And at the end of the weekend, he had convinced me, like, yo, you gotta come work with me at Epic Records. And at the time I was at Def Jam, they wasn't really treating me right, you know? So L.A. Reid met with me, and they tripled my salary. And they was like, yo, come, let's work together. And I left the company. I talked to YG. He said, as long as you can still work with me, that's all good. That's what I did. And kind of like the rest is history. You know what I'm saying? And then I ended up with Travis. We ended up going to the studio. Got a house studio like he wanted. Put all these producers in there. Put out an album, his first album in 9 months. Put out his second album a year later. And then his third album, Astroworld, 2.5 years later. And then just kind of went crazy from there.
Word. What how, you know, I feel like the music industry, and this is said, I'm learning as well as you speak. Where do you think like personal responsibility lies with you in your world? Like, what's that a part of your process in regards to like
the content?
Just in general, for personal responsibility of how you treat people, like how you know what I mean, how you just move in the manner of your industry, because it's you know, I mean, that world is kind of wild in regards to like.
I think you gotta do good business with the talent.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? I think I do good business with everybody, but you definitely, especially to the talent, you gotta do great business. But everybody that I mentioned, like, I'm still great with. Like, I still A&R Travis, still good friends with YG. Me and Lil Durk have an artist together right now.
Yeah, the artist can speak highly of you, which is a really important thing, because I think people forget that it's the art. You know, the business aspect is the business aspect. It is what it is. But the art is the art. And if you disrespect the art, I don't give a fuck with anybody. That's the issue, yo.
Because I protect the artists.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so like what happens is the artists are the ones who get me my gigs and my roles, because they'll put me in rooms that I can't get into.
Word.
Because they'll be like, well, is Sick here? Like, I'm not going to have this meeting without Sick. Word. And then like a lot of times I'd be like unprecedented. Like when they're in the room, they'd be like, damn, like why they calling for him? Like it's not even an A&R room. They'll like call me in like manager rooms, because like I'm the one helping them execute their vision, because they like have this vision, and I'm like, for the first time, is somebody like keeping like tabs on their vision. Because usually like, you're an artist, like you'll cut like a bunch of songs, you forget about half of them, and you're in it by yourself. Like with me, I'm like, nah, remember this song you cut 3 months ago, and remember the concept of this album is so and so. So you gotta put this one back up here, and we're gonna do it this and da da da. And then they don't really have somebody like that in their life.
You're a certified coach, GM. Like for real. Like you, and to put it in sports terms, the way that you speak about the artist in the sense of how you help give them structure, how you help give, you know what I mean? Like you're able to see what will get the most out of them and the best out of them. It's like, yo, I'm gonna make you your best self. That's that's coach shit.
Because it's talent.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So, and it transcends. Like, I think that I love sports, right? As you heard me with a bunch of sports references today. I love like, basketball is probably my favorite because I understand it the most. So like I love like company, like the culture of like the Raptors. Like they're betting on international players. Yeah. Everybody 6'8", 6'9", swingmen who could do whatever it works or not. San Antonio Spurs, they bet international before it was a thing. You know what I'm saying? OKC is betting on really smart players who make really great decisions. So they'll have 5 great decision makers on the court at the same time, and it populates success. So for me, it's like, all right, I'm really good at working like at high-end hip-hop artists. Like if it's too gangster, I'm like, all right, you can still be as gangster as you want, but I'm gonna show you how to make like a concept behind your music. You know, I'm gonna show you how to put it in an overall theme and why you're gonna have more success in here versus just trying to make it hit every time. Because sometimes, you know, as you know, if you get drafted to the wrong place with bad player development, it'll ruin your whole career. And if you go to a place with good player development, it can.
You'll see how it could change somebody's life.
Yeah, and these guys sometimes they don't want to just be like ragamuffins. You don't want to just be doing bullshit. But people have this knock on artists, like they don't like structure. They don't like traditional structure. They don't like 9 to 5. But if you tell them like, yo, we're gonna be at the studio every day at this time, we're gonna work with these people, and this is what we're gonna do for X amount of time, they're gonna show up. Yeah, absolutely. And if they don't show up, then that's not the person.
Exactly. Then you don't want to work with them. I'm definitely of the understanding that people do want like the root structure. Yeah. I said, it might look differently in regards to how they're structured, what they need, and everything, but I think people, they do want it, because I think structure gives them some sense of like personal control. And I think that people are looking for those types of spaces where they have personal control, even if it's the total other end of the spectrum from what the norm says. You know, like even when you look at artistry, there's some sort of rhythm. You know what I mean? Because that's what structure is to me, just a rhythm. You know, in how they move and how they do certain things. So I appreciate you saying like, yo, but that's good coaching. Finding out, you know, a good coach is just somebody who can look at their squad, look at their team, look at players, and recognize how to pull the best out of them. And recognize, you can't talk to every player the same way. You can't talk to every person the same way. You can't deal with every individual the same way. And understanding how to communicate in that aspect. And then in the same breath, recognizing like, yo, all talent looks for is, talent will run through a brick wall if they know you got your back. Right. As I tell people with coaches, I'm like, coaches forget, if a player knows that you have his back, they'll run through literally a wall for you. That's it. So what that look like? Support. Just,
and consistency too. Yeah, exactly. I think at a certain point I had to like switch my mind state. Like I wasted sometimes like partying too much or whatever, but then I had to like change my identity. I had to tell myself like, look, like you're like a coach now. You're an OG now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even though if I'm on the younger side, I'm a young coach, but I'm still a coach.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
yeah.
I can't do shit that the players do because
Yeah.
I have to set like a tone and an example. You know, I think
You're the foundation. I don't know, in many aspects. Yeah.
yeah, and you need to be that
Absolutely.
rock. So I can't just be going out doing crazily drinking every night because then that's not, you wouldn't want your coach doing that.
Exactly.
You know? So I have to kind of live in that identity. Now
That's actually but that's the point. That's what shows that you're different, because to be able to differentiate between the fact of age-wise, you might be younger than or might be the same age as the people you're working with, but you're not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you can recognize where your peers, but also recognize role-wise. It's like, well, what am I looking for in this like exchange of energy? Do I want them to see me as just one of the homies? Because it's like, no, you want them to trust you in a particular space where they can come to you and feel like, oh, you know what? He's not the same in the sense of, yeah, he's got more of his maybe quote unquote like it together or whatever it may be, or have an understanding of like, yeah, I'm more solid than. And this is what the notion around him being a foundation for somebody. Yeah. Because it's like, yo, they're gonna come to you when they need you. But if you're as flighty as them, they're like, I can't come to him. He's in the same
it's the same
thing with me. Yeah. He's not somebody I'm gonna go to.
To answer your question from before though, like I think the good thing about, I think where things really started getting magical for me is one time my homegirl Amber Ravenel called me. She said, hey, I found this thing online called like the Miracle Morning, right? And is you do these steps for 30 days and it said it'll transform your life.
Right.
I'm like, bet, I'm all with any kind of self-help shit. Like I'm with it. And so I'm going to get some steps. But basically you wake up, drink some water, meditate, journal, read, exercise, and maybe one other thing. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with you. I love that.
Oh, you know.
I know all the steps. I had our team in the 18.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, did it for like 30 days. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, all right. And then it really transformed my life. And then I realized that the success of my day is going to be based on my routine. Like I know my day is going to be great if I follow these steps.
Absolutely.
And then, I mean, a lot of other aspects to it, like what you're working out or like what you're reading, but just getting that chapter off a day means a lot. And I see sometimes my life derails when I stop doing it, you know, and it's just, and it's almost like, and it doesn't take long to get back on track. Like I'll do it again for like 2 weeks. I'm like, oh shit, I'm back in the flow.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I remember when Nelly had reached out about this date, I felt like I was out of the flow. And I was like, man, I don't really want to go on this podcast now because like I'm not really in practicing what I preach. You know what I'm saying? But I was like, no, let me just do it. Because then I heard like a Nelly's voice in my head. I just do it. Like, why you just do it right now? I mean, one time I asked him like, yo, man, I want to work on my posture. I was like, okay, stand up straight.
Word, just you know, the moment y'all just want to work on something, all right, just start.
So that's what I did. And then like over the last couple of weeks, a lot of things started happening again. I'm like, oh yeah, why do I ever stop doing this? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because it's just like, oh, like just a lot of blockages like open up and I could just feel myself getting lighter and I could feel like everything around me getting faster. But the problem I would happen sometimes, like I would do all this stuff, then I would waste it. Like sometimes people feel your energy and they start bringing you in their world and you have to be kind of like protective of your energy and you have to like also like not fall into the things that kind of make you slip up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just not going to, I'm just going to stay away from alcohol, period.
Yeah,
like,
I'm
just
just not put myself in those environments.
I'd just rather not. And then I have to like change my identity. Like, okay, cool. Like I'm a coach. I'm an OG. Like, you know what I mean? Like I can't, that's not my role to do that no more. You know what I'm saying?
And it's funny, I think that, and this then transitions into what I want to ask you. I think that when we have that in our world, where we recognize like our role, if you recognize like I am a coach and I like that in this particular space, I do think though there should be spaces where you're not the coach and you give yourself, we give ourselves as individuals opportunities, and this is where it's like, yo, what do you want to do creatively? What do you want to do personally? It's like, and I know you are a photographer now, and I feel like that's a space where you gave to yourself and allowed yourself to not have to be the coach. Mm-hmm. You were like, yo, I'm going to do this. I enjoy this. You know what I mean? Learn. And at some point in time, you might become a coach in that space. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But I think that creates a sense of balance, in my opinion, where you don't always feel like, yo, I always got to be the coach in my life. You know what I mean? My whole world is just about coaching. It's like, well, where do I not get a chance? Where do I get the chance to, quote unquote, maybe exhale or decompress from all that?
And that's a good point, you know. And I think like sometimes people get ushered into these positions by like a literal job or like fatherhood. Like if you become a father, like you're like, shit, I'm a dad now. I can't do X,
Yeah, I can't
Y, Z.
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Word,
just
yeah.
you know. But I don't have any kids, so I have to like really be hardcore about it.
Yeah.
Like shit, I can go to the club now, but like that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. And photography just gives me a chance to practice what I preach creatively. You know, because I'm helping everyone else with their creative process. So I get something that I get to be fully creative on. I have 100% creative control. So when I work on these albums, I'm not making the music. I don't have final say, you know, on like what they're going to say. You know, this is their expression. I just help put it together. Even as a, you know, that transition into being more of an entrepreneur and running a record label, it's more like, all right, I might have final say what comes out, but it's still like not my art. But I think like for photography, it helps me like have something I could just get good at, that I could just be like practice a craft, and then it helps me relate to even my artists more, because I'm like, they'll tell me about their song, like, which photo you like out of these?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like Travis was the one who got me into black and white photography. I was telling him like, yo, you know, people really like my Instagram. I'm gonna start shooting. He said, you should shoot on film and shoot black and white. Like, you know what I mean? Because he has great taste. He's like an art school kid.
Yeah.
So it's it's nice to have something to go back and forth on.
Yeah, having a cosign and a reference point from Travis Scott is pretty good.
But this is early in his career. This is
Word.
before he had his first album out. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I got to like shoot him.
That's
like,
beautiful, man.
So now I kind of mix it together now. Like I shoot a lot of like photography like of the process. Like I don't shoot like sunsets. Like I'll shoot places that people can't get. Like I'll shoot like in the studio, because you know when you see an artist out with their teams, they're gonna have 30, 40 people there. But you see them in the studio, it's not a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's by design, because they don't want the distractions. So
That's me.
I feel like I'm in a privileged position, a privileged space that people don't really see.
Absolutely.
So like I got a chance to kind of usher in like where I wanted to shoot. Like I shoot other stuff that, you know, I'll take vacation photos like anybody else, but that's when I was like, okay, this can really last. And I just want to document it. I like looking back at my photos. Like, you know, I see a lot of cool shit. You know, and I want my kids to show one day, like, yo, I was really outside, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? I got proof.
What would you say to somebody who's trying to get in your position in regards to, because all this is around the artistry and honoring that and really respecting that and being able to cultivate and get the most out of the art and the artist without compromising, like, which I think is a tricky fine line. You know what I mean? It can be a fine line in a lot of different spaces, especially with the business. Anytime you put business behind art, it's like you'll find it. But you've done a really phenomenal job of doing that. And then why I would say that is because I would know if you didn't, because the artist wouldn't speak so highly of you, because that's their feeling. You know what I mean? Like listen, you tell people. I would say, it's like, yo, you want to know if you're a good parent? Just listen to the kids. Mm-hmm. Ask the kids. They'll tell you. Whether they agree with you or not, the kids will say, yeah, they're good. Yeah. So what would you say you think is some like pivotal or like foundational points to remember for people?
In like my role?
Yeah.
I think that you need to have a little bit, kind of like know that you're helping the artist become their artists. Like real artists, not just musical artists, not just rappers, not just singers. Yeah. So like this is their art form. Yeah. And you know, every day they might need breaks. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they might be scared to talk about their vision. Your job is like to get to the point of where they want to go. Like, you know, if we're making like the Profits and Process podcast, right? And I'm like, no, album. Yeah. And I'm like, you're like, oh, well, I really want to talk the process of it, the profits, but it's process, but it's also like a little bit of spirituality. I want to get this, I want to get that. It's a free-flowing conversation. And then you come back and like, yo, I want to make a song about like celebration, right? Yeah. You know, it's like, nah, celebration not one. But then I have to like, you almost have to be really like, not kitty gloves, but you have to really start asking questions like, celebrating how? And maybe guide them like, oh, well, it means celebrating after you have the profits or through the process and celebration there. And like, oh yeah, maybe like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just trying to guide. Like there's no bad art. I believe that. Word. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But you have to like you can't be like, I think sometimes people get shut off when you go to a room. They're like, I don't like that song. That's not helpful.
Word, exactly.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you ask me questions like, why'd you make that song? Yeah. What was the context of this song? You know what I'm saying? Like I don't even tell people, like while I'm in the studio, I'm like, well, that's a good song, but I don't know if it fits what we're trying to do with the name of this album. You know what I mean? The name of the album is Malcolm X, and you have a line in there talking about pork. I don't think that.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily align. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, listen. Dude. That's coaching, and you must be phenomenal in a relationship, bro. Because being able to actually understand that in real time is a beautiful skill to have. To be able to actually know how to communicate the point and get across what you're trying to without somewhat dismissing, really just you saying it's not helpful recognizes that you're coming with a lens of always understanding the whole point of this is to be helpful in this process. The whole point is to be helpful.
Like part of my mantras in the morning is like when I read like my like personal like statements to myself, the first thing is like I help make the music better. Right, I'm like a mechanic or something. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm not like, if you bring your car to a mechanic, so like, oh, this car is a piece of shit. That's not helping.
Yeah,
right
it
now.
doesn't help. No.
You know what I'm saying? So I have to.
It's a beautiful thing, man, and I think that shows that your ego's in a healthy space.
Because remember, it's that back to that the art on the fridge, right? You wouldn't tell your daughter like, like, oh, that's great, and then one day be like, nah, that shit sucks. She's not bringing no more art.
Word.
You know what I'm saying? But if she's like, yo, Dad, I got this project. And you're like, all right, well, and then she tells you the vision of the project, is your job to tap in with that project. And now you're a co-conspirator with the project.
Word.
And that's how I feel. Like, even if the album takes years, like me and you are now like locked in. It's a us thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? I got to feel like you feel it. I got to live it like you live it. You know what I'm saying? And I think sometimes it's hard for me to like, that's why the coach thing I have to do the coach thing. Cause you get so deep into this process with somebody and they always want you around, but you always got to also remember to yourself, like you have to have your own space.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta have,
and you have to have your own
to be able to do what you do.
Yeah, because sometimes you do this stuff and it goes so big that you just want to like, all right, let's go celebrate the whole way. I'm like, oh, you know what? I kind of gotta retreat. Not because I want to just go on tour go to every after party. Yeah, I would love to do that, but it's not going to help the next time we have to do it.
Absolutely. You also got to find your spaces to recharge and find your spaces to actually recalibrate so that you continue to be able to show up as you are and who you are
and get better. So I study a lot of like a lot of coaches.
Word.
A lot of
I can see, you're a certified coach, bro. You want kids?
Yeah, for sure.
You're gonna be a phenomenal father.
Thank you.
Phenomenal, bro. Like, thank you for this. I know we're not even done yet, but like, this is dope to hear, and it reinforces a lot of stuff. But man, I'm excited for you. Yeah,
it's gonna be. I think that's kind of like gonna be like the best A&R job I ever do. Is gonna be my kids.
Word up, it is, yo. It's the illest.
I think I study a lot of directors too, because directors have like their own vision, and I think there's a couple type of directors, right? There are directors who work around the material and work their style around the material, and directors who work the material around their style.
Yeah.
Right. So somebody like a Woody Allen, or a Quentin Tarantino, you kind of know the tempo,
what angle, absolutely.
Even though whatever the concept of the movie is, and I think like some people they work it around the talent. You know what I'm saying? Like around the actual art, like a Soderbergh or something like that. Yeah. Like he'll make a bunch of movies that look absolutely different. You know what I mean? But like
But with the
it's a certain level.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what I like to do. I like to help artists become the highest version of themselves, versus like kind of fit them in a box that I feel like they could work with. You know what I'm saying? I think that I feel like Travis is one of the most unique artists in the world, and I think I could help him with that because I don't try to put his thing in a box and it becomes unique. YG is like a very unique. Like, it's West Coast. It's an archetype with the West Coast. He's a very unique archetype with his stuff, but at the same time, it's like trying to help him get his different creativity off and different things is really cool. I'm working with this artist, Don Tolliver, now. I've been working with him for his whole career, and just watching him grow and learn different things for project by project is a lot of fun. It's been working on his 4th album, and it's happened fast since 2020. Like, every album he dropped during the pandemic, so obviously with the Cactus Jack team too, and it's
I
just
like that.
it's great watching him go. So like, you know, it's I think I like the Customato for Tyson. You know what I'm saying? I think that he was great. He's actually Malcolm X is actually my favorite person in history because
Of course he is, because he's the illest.
yeah, he is. I like that he reinvented himself fully and committed.
Certified.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he's kind of bulletproof when he changed to Malcolm X. You can knock all the Detroit Red shit if you want, but I think that makes him iller.
Absolutely.
You know,
you can see what he did, what he was willing to do, and that's what I said. It's transformed. I think you know, we're in a space now where I had a friend of mine say something to me about, we're talking about like discipline, and I think that we're changing like the world and like the paradigm of like how we're in this world. Like, clearly we're becoming more emotionally aware, and we're just looking at things from a different lens. But discipline is very linear, in my opinion. Like, I think we're at a point now where we're almost like looking at devotion, because devotion becomes like lifestyle in regards to how I'm moving.
right?
And you know, it's more than just committed to something. It's more than just invested. Like, there's my phases of like there's an invested. You can invest in something, you can be committed to something, and then you can be devoted to something. And when you become devoted is lifestyle to me.
Right.
It's like where this starts to become like a self-realization and self-actualization in regards to like, yeah, how much do you want this? Are you willing to become this?
Right.
In whatever capacity? And I think that that's where the beauty becomes in regards to like alchemy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you start changing yourself, you see like, nah, how you willing to change and develop yourself? That's parenting, that's coaching, that's, you know what I mean, to embody what you're trying to show. Because all you're doing is basically, I think all I see is that, and what it feels like is what you're doing with these individuals is showing them the same support that you would want. You know what I mean? Giving them the same sense of self that you would want in a particular space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you were creating art. That's a beautiful thing, dude. Yeah, man. I hope whoever watches this recognizes and see, yo, just this dude, give him more jobs, give him whatever, man. You've been speaking to this the whole time, but I ask every guest about, and this is why I would like big up yourself in the sense of, what space would you say in regards to your process? What part of your process do you think you're most wise in?
Just like the craft of helping make a body of work. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like anyone could come to me and be like, yo, I got this idea, and I can help see it all the way through to like a creative idea, I should say. And I can help see it all the way through to like a final body. And I feel like I could probably help a fine artist, you know? I won't have as many reference points for artists, but on the musical side, like, I could just really get that to the point.
But you have an understanding.
But I've also been doing it for a long time. Like, the mixtapes is or like albums.
Yeah.
Like, you have a mixtape, and it's a track listing, and you order, you put it in a flow, and people have to experience that order. So I've been doing this for over 20 years now. I've been doing it longer than I haven't been doing it. So now it's to the point where it comes to like the mastery of it. And I feel like I could do it anybody. And I feel like it took me a while I feel like a lot of us go through this. I forgot which book it was. And it said people who do things from a childhood on usually get kind of bored of it by 25. Like, I don't know if you have any interest in like playing football again. Like,
nah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
But then people who kind of like go from job to job until like their mid-20s, and when they find something they love, they stick with it forever because they tried a bunch of different things in life. Yeah. And they're like, oh, this is me.
Yeah.
And then I think when you find this is me moment, that's the hardest thing, because then it's like, all right, this is what I stick with, and I can just work at it.
Exactly.
Because now I know I'm like interested to see where I'm going to be like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, because I might not end up working or helping with my best body of work till I'm 60.
Right.
If I keep focusing on the craft and just keep being able to teach this,
just stay in the process.
The process in the process.
Yeah.
I could teach my kids something how to do it.
Absolutely.
That's something that's like,
and it's invaluable because it's not limited to that.
No.
All you've learned is, it's like, this is why, and this is what I tell people. I became great in ball And when I say great, I know that's relative. I'm not.
No, you're great.
But I was one of the best at the field.
It's hard to run 1,000 yards in a season.
Yeah. I did it a couple times, so it's all right. Like I could hang with some of the killers. I knew because of my work ethic, because of my willingness of what I was willing to do on my process, that I can do anything. Whether I choose to do it is up to me.
Right.
And that's an accountability thing. My father taught me that. It was like, no. Your work ethic is your greatest skill because you know whether or not you're putting everything in. And I think that's football. It had nothing to do with football. You know what I mean? It's like it was anything. And when you recognize that, it's like, oh, like just remember how to do this. Mm-hmm. We know how to do this. And listen, I love playing the guitar. That's all I want to do now for the most part. And I know how to rep. Because I've done enough reps in my life. I know how to practice. Mm-hmm. I know how to feel what's right. And I do. It's like at some point in time, it gets to a point where it's like, oh, just remember how to do this, dude. Yeah. It's just with a guitar this time. You know what I mean? And I love that because I love being able to actually tap into, to me, something that's already inside of us.
Yeah.
Whatever the skills are, that's, in particular, that's the expression outside.
But that repetition and that process helps you able to apply it for different sides of life.
Absolutely.
Like for me, like my next challenge is, I've been a DJ and I've been an A&R and I've been a manager. Right. And now I have to, I'm starting a new venture.
Take all that in there.
Yeah, to my new venture, 3 times lighter or like 3XL.
Right.
And I have to take that into entrepreneurship. You have to run a business. You have to deal with younger creatives who are ambitious, and then you almost have to A&R them. Like, oh, this is your role that you could go here for X amount of time before you go off in this career path. Yeah. And just like, now I'm a mentor for, a bunch of people now, you know what I'm saying? And like, they'll call me up and just, my girl would be like, damn, like everybody be calling you for advice. Like, you know what I mean? You should charge them. I'm like, nah, that's not the game.
Yeah,
like,
word. See, that's what's up.
I used to call people for advice all the time, and this is my role as part of my identity.
I respect that.
You know what I'm saying? So if I have to take 30 minutes out of my day to talk this person off a ledge about something, I'm just going to do it. Or if they about to make a real life decision and they're going to call me about it, like,
word.
Because I've been through here.
Don't change up on them. You know what I mean? Yeah. Don't change up.
You need to be part of that. And I think like using everything I've gotten to this point, it's going to be fun to use that process to be consistent on the entrepreneurship side. Yeah. And they say a lot of A&Rs have successful entrepreneurship careers because you could pick talent, you could pick businesses.
Word.
You know what I'm saying? But I think like I'm not trying to be like a some kind of serial entrepreneur. I don't want to sell like keys or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I just really want to do what I wrote on that piece of paper and create like that crazy institution. So like when I want to put it all into one thing. So when it's all said and done, I look back like I was like I could like, okay, I did that. You know what I mean? And I have that built and that base as I goes on. Because like 1,000 years ago, right? Your dad was a painter. He learned how to paint his whole life. You was a painter. Your dad was a carpenter. You was a carpenter. And your last name was Carpenter. Like you guys did that, and it became a generational thing. And I think like I'm excited to do that with my kids. If they want to go do something else, it's cool too.
Cool, yeah. But
like,
you want to actually give them. You want to be able to give them that.
Yeah, and if I could just stay in that craft for long enough that they could be able to learn that too, and pivot and remix it and do their own version of it. You know what I'm saying? But at least like, look, I'm teaching you like how to fish. Like you're gonna learn how to.
You're giving them real skills. I call that. Let's say we have a hashtag. I call that. While we're here, let's just add to our attributes. Yeah. And add to our skill sets and what we bring to the table, and because then you can pass that on in whatever capacity you can pass it on to your people. Like literally. You're raising people right now. This new company, you're going to be raising people. All right. You're going to be giving them your skill sets. Because trust me, at some point in time, somebody's going to say, yo, you take pictures too, boss? You a photographer too? And then you're going to be like, yeah, and you might spark something in them that says, oh, man, I want to take this in another realm or whatever. So, that's game right there, yo. Yeah. And I love, that that's the service aspect. Because to me, all that does, it just continues to reinforce your lifestyle. What you move and how you do things, that's your perspective on, you do things because you see the world in a particular type of way. Like, nah, I want to do this. I feel like I need to do this. I want to do this, blah, 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 whatever desires or needs. And then for me, the things that I do, all that reinforces my lifestyle. My lifestyle reinforces my perspective, and just keeps one cyclical thing where it just keeps going, and we grow in that. You know what I mean? So it's like a spiral like this where I'm just gonna keep growing in that aspect. And to hear this helps me, because to hear you just all you did was just reinforce. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, and it just reinforces why I'm doing this. Like, it reinforces all these different things. It reinforces why my curiosity is around, like, yo, I want to run by what I'm doing with you. So I'm gonna hit you and tell you like all the things. I have a lot of ideas. But
you also see how it works both ways. Like, a lot of the advice that you've given me over the time helped me pivot. Like, okay, that's how I want to move. You know, like, this is what I want to do. And I'm just been sharpening it to the point where, like, I want to make my life really simple. Like, I build a studio in New York. I walk around, I can find a talent, you know, and I'm sharpening my skills. And then, you know, Custom Model didn't get Tyson until he was in his 60s, right? To the 70s.
Yeah, it was 60.
And he's a lifelong boxing coach and promoter.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just excited just to be like walking around the streets of Brooklyn and then see like the next Mike Tyson. You know what I'm saying? See the next Jay-Z or the whoever comes up and is willing to do it the right way. Like, yo, you know, I've done research on you. Like, I've seen a podcast. I want to trust the process. I want to go to take the steps to get there, and then just being able to build out for like a community is gonna be cool. Like, you know, like if anybody, like, I want people like, oh no, you know, I can take you to Sick. You know, he got a company that can do it.
Because that's where I think we build a healthy community, where it's like trust. You know, you want to be able to have people in your corner where somebody comes to you, you're like, yo, I know somebody that I trust, that I can send your way. And you know that they're going to do right by, you know, even if it just, you know, is a catalyst to something else. But it's like, yo, you want that, because that's what creates a perspective in somebody else that might look at the world and be like, I don't trust nobody. And you know what I mean? Yeah. But one person does right by them, shows them like, nah, yo, I'm going to put you on. Boom, boom.
Because now, like, even like working with Dirk, you know, he has an artist now that we're partnering with because of that trust that we built 10 years ago. Now he has somebody else. He's like, nah, like, you know, I remember one time we was at a dinner table, and his man was in there too. His friend was talking like, "Yo, this other exec's interested too." He like, "I don't know what you talking about, man. I'm rolling with Sick," because he trusts the process. So even like the guy, you know, the best prospect since LeBron, Wembanyama, is coming out, and he's going to San Antonio with Popovich. You know, he's at the end of his career. He's on his custom auto. Yeah. But he's like, shit, like, I got a service to do because now I got this kid. I got to make sure he's raised the right way.
Word up. And you know, Tony's going to look out for him. Tony Parker going to look out for him. It is. I'm super glad he went to, you know, off topic. I'm glad he went to San Antonio.
Me too. He was glad too. Did you see him like when the Rockets got
when they didn't get the tick? He went like,
yes.
He knew what it was.
Because that showed me where his head was at. Because I was like, at the Rockets, Houston would be like the most fun city to go to. Yeah, whether Charlotte or Detroit or San Antonio, but that's not where his head is at.
That's not what he wants. Nah, he wants
greatness.
He wants to get after it. And I like that. Nah, he's the truth. You could tell.
Who else I was watching? Like you saw LeBron when he lost to Jokic and the Nuggets. Yeah. Like, they keep talking about his retirement, what he's thinking, but you know what I think he's thinking? He's like, oh nah, nobody's beating this guy. Like he after 4 games, he's like, no one's beating Jokic. Like, I think for like, unless like he has an injury or something. Yeah, I think it's gonna be his league for like 2-3 years, and he's such a unique player. No one ever liked him.
Yo, I know he a bad man, boy.
and he said like, I was a fat point guard, like, you know what I'm saying, like I just had a growth spurt.
Word.
But he was just before he plays like
a fat point. Yeah, that's exactly what he plays like. Yeah.
Now he's a big boy, and then like, he added the muscle, and now it's like I think he's gonna not only win this year. I think it's gonna be a couple of years where he just because they got that team together on contract. I just think, but I love the beauty of like being able to play with like a unique talent like that. Yeah. Versus like, or like a Mark Jackson versus a Steve Kerr, right? Mark Jackson had the same team. A lot of people complained that Mark Jackson ran that team, but he
created the foundation for Steve.
He did, but he didn't give him the freedom to get to the next level. Yeah. Like, he was like, nah, Steph, you can't shoot from 40 feet. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not how you play basketball. Versus,
what's he saying? What really was that? Some of the comments? Oh, yeah. See,
but when Steve Kerr came in, he was like, "Nah, we're gonna build this team around Steph's talents versus trying to force him to play the way, you know what I'm saying, like the basketball is supposed to be played." And I think that's where
the fucking game.
That's where innovation comes in. You know what I'm saying? Like in football, right? It's like sometimes it's the Wildcat and Wildcat's straight out. You know, you have to have innovation.
Yeah, and that's a good coach looks at what they have and says, "All right, yo, I'm going to find out how to win with what." And the goal is to perform at the highest. I said it is. it does. People do struggle with the idea of like, well, what's the point? What's the goal of this? Is the goal to look a particular way? Because that fucks with people. Some people that is like they don't want to break character. You know what I mean? They don't want to break the norm, the whether it be the societal, the industry norm, or whatever it may be on how to do something. Where it's like, yeah, but if you're trying to be great at this, then you better look at the talent. And some teams and some coaches are able to do that and say, yo, nah, all right. Or some teams say, nah, you got to play within this structure. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your skill set is. You're going to play within this. You're going to create within this. It's like...
And those coaches don't last.
Yeah, no. It's like, yo, you're a dying breed because you have to be able to adapt. You know what I mean? You got to be able to adjust based upon your environment and your peoples.
I'm picking up that helicopter, so just hold on for 1 second.
All right, we're good. Yeah, so this last aspect, I'm going to wrap it, and these are more kind of like introspective questions about like just how you see like, you know, how you see the world and your personal like willingness and stuff like that.
All right, we're gonna.
You know, now that you spoke so much about like the value of like your process, does this make you more willing with everything that when you look at your body of work and your body of work scope, but then also like what you're doing right now? And I think that you said it because of what you're taking on right now. I just want you to reinforce, are you more willing to step into a field or a hobby or a space that you are not necessarily familiar with just because you're like, you know what, you have the tools? You feel like you have the personal tools?
Yeah, I feel like I have the tools and like the patience. You know, I think telling that story about like when, because sometimes I don't like listening to podcasts when people just talk about the success. I feel like people got to talk about the failures. You don't really learn anything.
I want to hear it all.
Yeah, you don't learn anything from like the successes. You learn stuff from the failures. And when I kind of went all the way down and climbed back, it gave me the confidence to be like, all right, well, I could do it again. You know, so if I wanted to go learn music production, you know, start a company or do whatever, like, you know, I could want to start picking up a camera or a video camera, I could do it. And if I stick with the process, it's good. Like, you know, it's a great, you ever read the book Atomic Habits?
Yep.
You know, they say systems versus goals.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I think like just building that system is important, you know, and I think if you have like the system as part of your DNA, you can really accomplish anything.
Or, you know, that book speaks to an example of something that I've always had a part of my life. And my mom started it with, you know, the focus your energy. Like I have a tattoo on it that says focus your energy on that which you want to create. And the phrase that my mom had was focus your energy on that which you want to create, not what you want to change. And I didn't even want that tattooed. I didn't want change tattooed on me. I just wanted focus your energy on that which you want to create. And in my world, when I was playing ball and I wanted to become one with ball. I didn't want to play ball. I wanted to become ball. And so for me, how I looked at that was, ideally, I didn't want to go more than 10 minutes without thinking about football.
Yeah.
Because to me, the further I separated from thought with something, then there was more of me to not become that and not be that. And so that meant a lot of times me carrying around a ball. And you hear it all the time. You think about kids who are obsessed with basketball or sports. They're carrying that ball around all day. It's like, yeah, because they're becoming that.
Yeah.
They're embodying that sport. They're embodying everything. So I would carry football. And when I had my injury, my mom was like, what are you doing, yo? I'll never forget. My rehab, my mom was like, what are you doing? She's like, you slipping. I'm like, what's up? And she's like, where's your football? You're not walking around with the ball?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're right. I get back there because I wanted my arm to feel, to get used to that, where it's like you become one. You know, you touch that grass on that field. You want to become one with that grass.
Right.
And for me, it's interesting with the guitar. And this is when I first started playing the guitar, and I'm by no means I'm a heavy, crazy guitar player, but I do know part of the process for me is becoming familiar with it, but not just familiar with playing in sight. Yeah. And so I want it to be in my line of sight. So I keep my guitars all around my house so that I see them. And I, you know, like, listen, I play acoustic a lot, but if I'm gonna play my electric only a couple months and it's sitting there in front of me and I only played a couple months, if I put it in the garage, I ain't never gonna play it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you gotta
Atomic Heights, like, yo, you gotta keep it in your circle. You keep it in your ecosystem. The things that you want, whether it's books, people, ideas, keep them in your ecosystem. You know, even if they're not in your forefront everyday process, like, yo, but if you want to keep them and have them be a part of your world in some capacity, you have to keep them a part of your world, you know, or not, or vice versa. If you want something to not be a part of your world,
You gotta hide it.
exactly.
You don't want to eat the cookies. You gotta put
Exactly.
it in the
Absolutely. Don't have it be a part of your world, you know, and that goes for ideas, things, people, you know, across the board, and having that recognition around what you actually want. What's the point? You know, that's really something I'm sticking to right now. It's like, what's your point?
That's why the first thing I'm doing with the company is building the studio out. Because I'm like, you know what? I feel the most comfortable in the studio.
Word.
Not because like I'm singing there or whatever. Just it's like my place, you know. And I always feel great when like I'm in have these long sessions. You know, sessions for artists are usually like anywhere from like 8 to like 16 hours. You know, and I'm in the studio like 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And if I even go anywhere else to like another room or something, after like 15 minutes, they're like, yo, so-and-so's looking for you. You know? But I like it though.
Yeah.
And I remember I was talking to an engineer yesterday, and he's like, man, I can't wait to get out of this chair, sitting in this chair 16 hours so I can start producing. And I was like, I'm going to stop you right there. You know what I'm saying? The reason you're getting a lot of these opportunities is in the chair, you know. And I was like, look, you have 5 songs on this album.
Yeah.
And 4 of the songs are because you were sitting on that chair. Only one of them was made
Out that chair. Yeah.
out that chair. So if you don't like sitting in the chair, then start doing planks. Like, you know what I'm saying? Get a more comfortable chair.
Yeah.
But don't disrespect like what got you there.
Word.
And like for me, like me being in the studio and having access to it is like my happy place. You know what I'm saying? I can't wait to just have it always going at the same time. So my office is the studio.
Yeah.
And I just think I could just live in there and just until I could become like, you know, I think the byproduct of that system, I end up becoming one of the greatest like record people. Like everything I've done so far to me has been practice. I don't look at anything like.
That's all we do is practice.
I don't look at any of this to like, okay, cool, I've done so much. I look at it all, and really like on a day to day, I always look at it like, man, like as soon as I get this step, like, okay, I've got an artist that is one of the biggest artists in the world, and I've done it again. I've done this, I've done that. But now this new chapter that I'm going to is the first time to me it really counts because I'm building it for something that is going to be last longer when I'm here.
Word.
It's something that I own.
Yeah.
Something that I'm building. You know, because you do it for these labels like, you know, you're Def Jam and Epic and Atlantic and Interscope and all your accomplishments in corporate America
Or in relation to them.
Yep, and it also goes away.
Yeah.
And it's in anything. Let's say like you marketed like a hit book, right? And then you're a part, and that person leaves the company. Somebody else just takes your credit.
Word.
You know what I'm saying? It's not like sports where like, you know, if you ran 1,000 yards, you ran 1,000 yards. In this, people kind of like take it away from you a little bit. If you're behind the scenes. So for me, it's like, all right, even in the argument,
you become eaten up. Yeah, and that to some degree, like, that makes sense. Like even in sports too, you do become. And I think that's the notion of why people say like, nah, I don't do my own thing, because you do become. You're never bigger than the actual, whether it be organization or label or something like that. So it is easy to be eaten up, and I think that creating your own, like you said, it does. It outlasts. It lives longer than. And it's like no matter what is done, it's this. And somebody else at some point in time in your label will say, I gotta do my own thing. Because,
and that's cool.
Yeah, exactly. And that's beautiful. And that's what you
cool.
want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's essentially what you want. It's like because people should be in a space to actually learn, create, grow, you know what I mean? Help develop, and then get to a point where like, nah, okay, I want to branch out and do my own thing. Beautiful. That's what I want.
Yeah, and it's nice to have like a coaching tree. Like great coaches have other coaches that come underneath them.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Without Bill Parcells, you wouldn't have Bill Belichick. You know what I'm saying?
Mad dudes, yo. So many coaches. That literally, all right, so you talked about that essentially, I like can feel what you love about your process. Can you give us one thing that you don't necessarily love about your process that you know, all right, I'm working on, you know, this is something I want to work on and become better on?
I like listening to beats all day. I hate listening to beats. I like listening to enough beats that I know what you do as a style, then I want to put you in with the artist.
Got you. Okay.
But
yeah.
I could definitely listen to more beats, I guess. That's probably
right.
like one thing that I really don't like. But when I'm in my studio, I can just listen to beats all day, I guess.
All right.
That's probably the only thing I really don't like.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot. How could you right now take a couple seconds and think about how you could feel more comfortable listening to beats all day?
I gotta change my relationship with the beats versus like right now I'm saying I don't like listening to beats.
Yeah.
But if I say like listening to beats will help me accomplish, will put me like closer to, listening to beats is what a successful entrepreneur does, right? Hey, then okay, I gotta listen to beats. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But now I'm changing the psyche
Exactly.
of why.
You're just changing your perspective on why. Yeah, absolutely. You're changing your relationship with what it looks like.
Right.
That's it. Sick. You the illest. What? All right. So for you, you basically hold. I'm gonna wrap up. Like, what would you like this whole existence? You do what you do, and you're doing all the thing. What is it around this existence that we call life? What does it mean to you?
What does the existence of life mean to me? I guess kind of like, it's weird, man. It's like you grow up in a home, you try to fight to leave, you go do everything else, and you just come back home, right? So I think the word that I've always resonated my whole life is like home. I've always like having a home base. I always want to have a home for other people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I always like being like a home foundation. So I think at this point, that's kind of like where my head is at. It's just like, just building a home and being able to be like that consistent spot for everybody in my life. Like, whether it be making a home physically, building a home entrepreneurially, like, what I mean? Just building like the home that just could just be like the center or something. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like I done been around the whole world, you know what I'm saying? Then like where I end up, like now I'm going back to New York. You know what I'm saying? I love being in New York more than anything. I'm like, I went everywhere and like, no, New York's the vibe.
That's what's up.
So I love kind of like being whole and kind of like building that home. So building, and from there everything that happens, it's like, because you could do whatever, right? Like you'll have like your kids that'll go try for ballet, make a school team, go out to college, everybody comes back home. You know what I'm saying? They'll get a job, they'll have a breakup, they'll get married, might get divorced, they got a wedding, a funeral, not bar mitzvah, but like all this type of thing, and then but it always comes back home. Yeah. So it's just like, you chair and you're in your tribe as you chair and you go support, and you did time to support when things go bad. You know what I'm saying? But it's always like that home is just everything. If I want to start,
if you have a home, I see that as if you have a home, it allows you to go out again and do what you got to do and do what you know what I mean. Yeah, it's like you always know you can come back home.
I start my podcast and then I'm gonna go home. You know, if you went to go do a solo guitar gig, you're gonna have your tribe. And,
we ain't there yet, but we coming.
But it's like it's nice to know that you whatever you do, you go back home. So that's kind of like where I kind of see life now at this point. Before I used to think it was always about all these things you accomplish, and now I kind of look at it different. It's like what that base is, and then being that base for other people.
Bet, man, that's beautiful. All this stuff helps me really. All right, final question. This is the last question I ask everybody. You told us everything what you do, your perspective on why you do it. It's a beautiful thing, and it's super valuable in my opinion. All right. Now that you told us what you do, who are you, Sick?
Who am I?
I like that you're pulling from the ether too. That's why we're looking up.
I guess it's a guy that helps people get better, I guess. You know what I'm saying? I like.
That's a beautiful way to look at it, because you definitely do, man. And I think that even to the capacity I said, me learning about you in this, I'm super grateful, because I think that even in your demeanor and the energy you give off is calming, and you're using particular words that I think will help me. Like, I'm just thinking about, like, in reference to later on during the day and being with my daughters and how I'm going to look at them, and, that's not, as soon as you said that's not helpful, it's like, yo, I know for a fact a lot of times my daughters have probably thought, damn, Dad, that wasn't helpful. And me thinking that what I was saying was important, but not necessarily thinking, was it helpful? And I think there's a big difference. So I appreciate you've helped me immensely, and just in my reference point. So thank you. You've helped me become a better parent just in noticing around.
Well, that's part of the tribe, right?
That's it.
And you've
That's
helped me
it.
over
No,
the years.
certified.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's it. And all this just reinforced. It's just, you know, this is why I'm doing what I do, dude. And this is why I think, you know, I appreciate you being a part of this, like truly, because it's helpful to me, it's helpful to others, and I think this is what helps people feel better about who they are, who they're not. In the moments they feel alone in their perspective, you know what I mean? The moment that they feel like, yo, man, I just feel like I don't get it, you know, I know you're gonna help people in the, you know, people that are in a bunch of different spaces, whether it's the music space or whatever field they're in. And that, to me, when you have connection through understanding and then connection through perspective, that's how you create community, because sense of selves are developed and then allowed to say, you know what? Oh, you know what? I'm not alone in how I feel. I feel like this, and I can, you know, I can take that next step forward in capability. And then we reach out to somebody, and we're like, yeah, yo, I really fuck with that. Yo, I've been thinking like this, or I've been thinking about this, and you help somebody, or they might say, you know what? Actually, I know somebody can help you, and that's essentially how we build community. And community to me is how you build health.
I agree 100%.
So, my brother, man, always. And I think we out. Thank you.